Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1150 of the War News stream. Today, we have very big news that Russian soldiers have revolted on the commanders in Krasnodar. Also, the Yemeni Houthis have attacked a French Navy vessel, and Israel preparing a new escalation on Iran. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as major news developments are coming out over just the past 24 hours, letting us know that things are certainly reaching a fever pitch in most directions, as we have been able to hear of a shocking upset for the Russian Federation, as an entire unit of the Russian Federation's armed forces, 150 strong, has now mutinied in the city of Krasnodar and has gone AWOL, causing terror and havoc inside the city streets. The Russian Federation has declared a state of emergency within the area of the city of Krasnodar, and Russian military police and local Rosguardia forces are now attempting to quell the mutiny for the large part that is now occurring within the direct center of Krasnodar. We have also been able to hear some other significant news that the Ukrainian armed forces, for the third night in a row, have stricken the facility at Shoya, home to the 112th Missile Brigade of the Russian Federation's armed forces that were responsible for the massacre in the city streets of Sumy only just last week. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear that the People's Republic of China has halted the importation of all American liquefied natural gas as of this moment, and we have also been able to hear that the People's Republic of China has now taken more serious actions in open escalation against American and Western interests, as we have now heard that they will be providing People's Liberation Army expeditionary forces to the Russian Federation to gain experience for their upcoming inevitable war with the Republic of China, also known by many as the island of Taiwan. We have also heard some major news from the Middle East as well, as we are hearing that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, will be giving a special address to the country tomorrow on April 19th. Unfortunately, we will not be here to cover that. We have also been able to hear that U.S. diplomatic negotiations are going to be continuing with the Islamic Republic of Iran tomorrow, but already many of the top negotiators are claiming that they are seeing that both the Iranians and themselves are having to get more hardline on their stances currently over the situation, as it appears no common ground will be met. We have also been able to see that a French destroyer, the Aquitaine, has been attacked by Yemeni Houthi forces just over the past 24 hours, as it had to engage and destroy a drone within visual range of the destroyer, destroying it just in time, much like the name of the vessel suggests. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear that inside the front lines of Ukraine, the Ukrainian armed forces have absolutely pummeled the Russian Federation's armed forces in multiple areas today, consisting of the area near to Grafovka in the Belgorod Oblast, as long as the Seversk and Severonsky forests. We have also been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces have continued their hammering offensives within the areas of Toretsk and Pokrovsk, as the Russian Federation's armed forces have taken incredibly high losses over just the past 24 hours alone. The news today is absolutely massive. And oh, by the way, I forgot to add in this tiny little piece of news that apparently it appears that ceasefire talks are soon to collapse, as the Secretary of State today publicly stated that it appears that they may not be able to make any common ground with the Russian Federation or Ukrainian peace negotiations, and if that is the case, the war will go on, whether the U.S. wanted it to or not, largely showing that the Russian Federation has conducted such a bad faith attempt at negotiations that the United States is soon to abandon all diplomatic efforts with the Russian Federation in concerns of the war in Ukraine. We have a load of news to cover tonight, an insanely high amount of news, as a matter of fact, and we are going to get into each and every single bit of it as much as we can. But moving on into the major breaking news of the day, we have been able to hear that the Russian Federation has dealt with an unprecedented situation and is the only thing so far in the war that I can say comes wildly close to the Wagner mutiny of the summer of 2023, and that is the Russian mutiny of Krasnodar. We do not know the exact unit that is involved, but we can tell by the size of the unit, which is about 150 strong, that it is an entire Russian company of a Russian battalion tactical group based within the city of Krasnodar that is now actively mutinying against the Russian Federation's armed forces and also the Russian Federation's central government. We've been able to hear that a mass of Russians have now broken out into the streets, as around 100 Russian soldiers have tried to escape from a military unit in Krasnodar, meaning they're mutinying. Detained for going AWOL, the soldiers broke through a fence and made it onto the grounds of the military commandant's office, showing that they were attempting to target military commanders in the middle of the mutiny. Once again, making this not an AWOL situation, but more so of a mutiny, as they weren't really breaking out of the base and trying to get away. They actually were breaking into a specific part of the base with the commandant in it, and were most likely going to try and rip the guy limb for limb. It's unclear if anyone managed to flee, but the streets nearby are blocked and vehicles are being searched, and we can also see the absolute chaos unfolding around this facility in the midst of the mutiny that was going on. And here's the clip.
Jeez, man, they got a whole response going on here. This is crazy.
Dude, it was absolutely going down in Krasnodar today. A lot of clips appeared to have been censored. We tried to get as many of them as we could, and we only ended up getting one that was actually usable for the stream. But nevertheless, from the details we're getting, the story that the Russians attempted to portray is not exactly the one that is realistic. Once again, around 100 Russian soldiers, it's a bit of an estimate. We've heard so far that it could be anywhere in between 100 to 150 Russian soldiers, which lines this up with an entire company mutinying against the Russian army. The reason why we know that they were mutinying is because they didn't really go AWOL, which means that they just abandoned their unit and started running around. The soldiers broke through a fence and made it into the grounds of the military commandant's office. So they weren't running out of the base, they were breaking into another area of the base with the Russian commanders, most likely for their battalion or possibly the brigade that they were attached to, were housed in. So it wasn't an AWOL situation. This is outright a mutiny by the details that we were provided loosely today by anyone who was able to get an inkling of information from it. It's unclear if anyone managed to flee, because they weren't trying to flee. They were trying to break into the military commandant's office, and we do not know if any officers have been wounded or killed in the instance of this mutiny. But as we can see from these few clips right here, it does appear that absolute chaos then ensued inside the city of Krasnodar, as it was unclear if this was going to become a major army-wide mutiny surrounding the area of Krasnodar, or whether this was going to be isolated to that one single company. Nevertheless, The instance of a single unit, an entire single unit, conducting any kind of a mutiny in the Russian war in Ukraine has been absolutely unheard of, at least in this kind of a form. We have seen that Russian units have refused to fight, which could be considered a mutiny, but we have never seen that entire Russian company has revolted against their commanders, and not only revolted against them, but sought them out in an attempt to try and most likely kill them. This has never been seen before outside of the Wagner coup of 2023, and while this is a lot smaller of an instance than the Wagner coup of 2023, this is the only second major mutiny that we have heard of on the Russian Federation side over the entirety of the near 3 years, now going into a 4th year of the war. It is once again showing that the strain inside of the Russian Federation's armed forces are beginning to reach a breaking point, and mutinies have been something that has commonly been seen throughout a large amount of warfare, or the history of warfare, but the fact that the Russian Federation has dealt with a large amount of mutinies, and the state of Ukraine has not dealt with a large-scale mutiny over the entirety of the war, is showing that Russian morale has been at a near breaking point for some time, and is now reaching such a breaking point that regular units of the Russian Federation's armed forces, not mercenaries, are now starting to go into open acts of mutiny on a company-wide level. This is something that is going to possibly start to spread throughout the Russian Federation's armed forces due to a lack of pay, a lack of respect by their commanders, and poor treatment of the conscripts that have been forced into the Russian Federation's armed forces over just these past few years. All of this could result in a large-scale mutiny happening inside the Russian Federation's armed forces at this point, as a large-scale mutiny such as this is starting to show that there are underlying issues in the Russian army that are beginning to crack it from the base on upwards. Moving on from that, though, and that major news happening inside of the area of Krasnodar today, we have also been able to hear of some larger situations that have been dealing with the Russian Federation at large. But before we move on from that, though, I do want to harp on this mutiny just a little bit more, as once again it has been attempted to be downplayed by many Russian sources today, and a lot of people have tried to they at least accept the story at face value, although once again, working with the details we have, it wasn't these guys weren't going AWOL, they were mutinying. It does appear that many people have been talking about these mutinies and wondering if they're going to start spreading throughout the rest of the Russian army, and whether mutinies are going to start, well, at least violent mutinies such as this, where they attempt to possibly cause harm or death to their commanders, may become commonplace in the Russian army, much like it started to become commonplace in the German and French militaries by the latter end of World War I. And it appears that a decent amount of people are actually believing that this can cause other mutinies throughout the Russian Federation's armed forces, and this may just be a watershed moment or the beginning of the end for the stability of the Russian Federation's armed forces, or at least the regular army. Some others are saying that this will most likely remain an isolated incident, and while it is the first example of a major scale mutiny that we've seen inside of the Russian Federation's army, it may end up just being the only one. Some others are saying that it seems a little bit overhyped, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. They only tried to gut one of their commanders. I mean, how bad could that be? And some others are saying that they're unsure and undecided at this moment about what this really was, or what they really think of it. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it? Do you think that this is going to begin to lead to more violent mutinies of the Russian Federation's ground forces, or do you think that this is more so going to be an isolated incident that we'll probably never hear of again?
So it looks like 50% of the audience said yes, it will cause other mutinies, while 23% said no, it will remain isolated, and 15% said it seems like it's a little bit overhyped. And I would say, I don't think this is overhyped at all. These guys, like the enforcer said, were going after the commanders. They were not simply trying to run off. They were actually going out for blood against their own commanding unit. So that was quite crazy to see. And once again, that indicates something really, really pissed the Russians off, where they really want to get revenge for something. And we know their conditions are horrific, but we don't know exactly what led this specific unit to actually go after the commander like that. So I'd be curious to know exactly what was the triggering factor to that, because all Russian troops are treated like crap. So maybe something specifically happened in this unit that pushed them off the cliff, but this was a pretty big deal. Certainly not just an AWOL incident. This was a full-on mutiny. So I'm going to say, generally speaking, I think it's going to remain pretty isolated, because it takes a lot of coordination by these Russian soldiers, who were usually drunk on vodka, to figure out how to actually overthrow their commanders. And this one was not very successful, but the attempt in itself was pretty historic, I would say. So I'm actually with the 22%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my honest opinion, I think this is actually going to spread. While this was largely downplayed, this is a very similar situation to the Potemkin, or the mutiny on the Potemkin, Potemkin that happened leading up to the Russian Revolution of 1917 in the middle of World War I. If some of y'all may know about this, let me go pull it up really quickly, the Potemkin Mutiny. The Potemkin Mutiny was a mutiny that happened in 1905, also called the 1905 Revolution, when the crew mutinied on the battleship Potemkin, or the pre-dreadnought battleship Potemkin, against its commanding officers. This was largely considered the rumblings leading up to the revolution that would begin in 1917, and was a major turning point in the history of the Russian Empire, and largely one of the beginnings of the end, at least for the Russian Federation, well, for the Russian Imperial Army, or in the Russian Imperial Navy as well. This is a situation that's fairly analogous to the one that we're seeing right now. There were a larger number of crew members involved in this instance. Battleships in the day required a large complement to be able to keep them running, of 705 enlisted men and 26 officers, at least for this specific class of warship. But nevertheless, this is a fairly similar situation, because we do know that there are a large amount of issues in the Russian Federation that have not really been addressed for some time, at least with how the Russian Federation has been fighting the war. Much like the situation in 1905 and leading up to World War I, the current Russian Federation's government is mired with corruption, the very same corruption that mired the Russian Imperial government leading up to the Russian Revolution of 1917. Many Russian citizens have been disenfranchised because of the current government, and find themselves to be highly displeased with the actions of the Russian Federation, and consider the Russian Federation's government to be putting the elite before the common people, much like the situation leading up to the Potemkin Mutiny and the Russian Revolution of 1917. The continued fact that the Imperial Russians at that time were getting in a war with Japan and had lost, and also the follow-up of World War I, which they also lost as well, was something that was really weighing on the minds of the Russian Imperial Army and Navy, and something that was continuing to make them believe that they were really fighting for a dead end. There was minimal pay, absolutely terrible conditions, and not only that, they were fighting for really no aim or purpose, and on top of that, they were also losing. All of these are the exact same things that this Russian unit was facing when it conducted its mutiny today in 2025, much like the situation that those Russian naval sailors were facing in 1905 on the battleship Potemkin. I think that it's a fairly analogous situation, and while this is the beginning, it's the beginning of the end. We'll most likely see that mutinies start to become more widespread, because this is showing that an entire Russian company can somehow team together to conduct a coordinated mutiny against their commanders. The entire company was involved in it just due to the scale of people involved, in an attempt to be able to try and kill their commanders and take control of their own unit in a revolt against the Russian Federation's government. So I would have to say that, in my opinion, I think that this certainly will spread. It's not going to be like these guys will become disciples of their own beliefs and start to spread them around the Russian army. A lot of these guys are most likely going to be imprisoned. But what they have done is that they have started to spread around the rumor that there was a revolt, and also their poor treatment soon to follow will most likely embolden the other Russians to join their cause and to start mutinying against their own commanders on the front. While this is the second major mutiny of the war after the Wagner Mutiny of 2023, the Wagner Mutiny was a mercenary company, or a mercenary unit, that was conducting a mutiny. This is a regular Russian army unit, a unit of the regular army that was conducting a mutiny today. It is actually the first of its kind for that reason, and considering that it's the first of its kind, there will be more to follow, considering that the morale was able to drop so badly in that one unit that it precipitated this actual mutiny. This will have to be happening elsewhere. It's just a natural occurrence at this point, because once the first mutinies in the French army occurred, I believe in the latter part of 1915 and the mid part of 1916, mutinies became commonplace in the French Republic's army throughout the latter end of World War I, and also once the first mutinies in the German army started around the earlier part of 1917, mutinies were commonplace. Not only mutinies, but entire regional revolts were becoming common in Imperial Germany by the latter part of 1917 and through to 1918. Once again, making it fairly clear, as far as the cohesion of the army, this is the beginning of the end. But moving on from that, and out of that news inside the Russian Federation, it is time for us to move on into some larger, interesting news that is also going on with the People's Republic of China. It appears that at this point, negotiations between the United States and China about ending the trade war aren't really going to be ending, because the Chinese have actually taken more retaliatory action against the United States today, and they have actually stopped and halted all liquefied natural gas imports from the United States into the People's Republic of China. It is once again another major move by the Chinese. Something that's also interesting about this is that the United States is one of the largest global suppliers of liquefied natural gas, so I really don't know who they're going to be getting to supply liquefied natural gas to them from this point on, but it does appear that the Chinese are continuing to ramp up the pressure in the trade war with the United States of America as they eventually try and continue to one-up the United States in hopes that the United States will heel to the Chinese and the Chinese won't heel to the United States. At this moment, it's fairly unclear which side's going to give in to who. It appears that this trade war still has a lot of life in it and will be going on for some time, as both sides continue to try and address their own differences. The United States' official position from the office of the president is that the People's Republic of China conducts predatory economic practices against the United States that are not beneficial for the United States' long-term economic success. On the other hand, the People's Republic of China is stating that their economic practices are not predatory, and on the other hand, the United States of America is conducting an unprovoked trade war against the People's Republic of China that is jeopardizing their economic security and economic future inside of the world. Both sides seem to be going at it pretty heavily at this point, but one thing is quite certain. While the United States and China may be more so speaking on a trade level right now, and that's what most of this is about, it also appears that the People's Republic of China is now going to be taking far more aggressive actions in support of the Axis powers in the world against American and Western interest. And that actually includes the war in Ukraine at this very point, as the People's Republic of China is going to be sending soldiers to Ukraine to prepare for a Taiwan invasion, according to sources that were provided to the publication The Hill today. This is something that we've already started to hear from President Zelensky may be happening, as nearly 200 independent Chinese mercenaries are fighting on the behalf of the Russian Federation inside of Ukraine currently. But based off the information provided to the newspaper The Hill today, it now appears that the People's Republic of China may actually be sending full-on voluntary not voluntary, but People's Liberation Army volunteer expeditionary forces to the Russian Federation to fight on the behalf of Russia, much like the North Korean expeditionary forces have also fought on the side of Russia so far, largely to gain combat experience, to be able to develop their doctrinal practices for their military, and to be able to make sure that they are as well honed and well researched on modern warfare as possible, so that way when they enter a modern confrontation, they will be better off than they originally would have been with the current amount of experience and knowledge that they have right now. This is once again another fairly large escalation by the People's Republic of China, and once again is starting to show that the People's Republic of China is not as benevolent a country as many people would like to believe. Another thing that's also interesting today, and something I didn't include on our news bulletin, is that President Zelensky actually started to implement sanctions against Chinese companies through the state of Ukraine that were continuing to supply and produce weapons and equipment for the Russian Federation's Iskander ballistic missiles. And we have also heard that President Zelensky is now stating that those sanctions may continue to roll even further on onto other Chinese companies conducting acts, once again supporting the Russian Federation's war effort inside of Ukraine. This is something that's
an interesting shift, by the way, because you remember Ukraine was trying to pursue trade relations, or at least discuss the possibility of having trade relations with China just merely 6 to 8 months ago. So that's a hell of a shift to start sanctioning the Chinese companies as a result of that. So I wonder if we're going to see something similar from the U.S. side, and now that Ukraine's doing that openly, because it would make sense to see that actually.
It is a little bit interesting to see that, because it did appear, I think actually, Matthew, that was an attempted strategy by Ukraine to keep China neutral by offering a trade relationship, so that way they had no inherent reason to go against them because they had economic interests at play. But I think that the Ukrainians are now seeing that the Chinese are not interested in any economic pursuits in Ukraine, and they actually do back the Russians fully. And so for that reason, they're now taking actions against China, now seeing clearly that there's really no way that the Ukrainians could go forward with a friendly relationship with China, considering that they're actively supporting one of their enemies. This is something that many people should learn from, is that once you see a country isn't friendly to you, you start to treat them like they're an unfriendly country. I would actually say that Zelensky's making an incredibly good move with that. But nevertheless, a lot of people aren't really talking about the trade war that's now happening in between Ukraine and China as a result of this, and also other things the Chinese have been providing to the Russians, but many people are talking about the provision of an expeditionary force from the People's Liberation Army to the Russian Federation in the war, which is going to be happening here within the very near future, as reports are now stating that China will send soldiers to Ukraine to learn from the war for their imminent invasion of Taiwan. And a lot of people are throwing in their thoughts on this, and it actually seems that it's an even split right now in between two camps of thought. Some people are actually thinking that the Chinese really can't learn anything from the Russian Federation, that they haven't been able to observe from afar, and so there really isn't a lot that the Chinese could get out of providing an expeditionary force to the Russians and getting involved directly in the war against Ukraine. Others are saying that China will gain some knowledge from it, possibly how to conduct war in the age of drones, and to be able to try and hone and refine their combat doctrine a little bit better, so that way when the invasion of Taiwan occurs, they will largely have a much better understanding of modern warfare than they would currently have right now, which is largely based entirely on theory. Another thing that's interesting about this, though, is that if the Chinese provide an expeditionary force to the Russian Federation and they do gain some combat experience or some tactical combat knowledge based off of their fighting inside of Ukraine, it still would take years for them to actually implement that as mainstream People's Liberation Army fighting doctrine. It may take about a couple of years. Once again, meaning that the earliest invasion window, if they wanted to actually utilize any knowledge they learned in Ukraine, would still be placed around 2027 to 2029, which still seems to be, outside of the economic trade war with the United States, the prevailing mindset that the window for a Chinese invasion will most likely open around the middle part of 2027 and then continue on up until 2032. So once again, while they may be providing an expeditionary force to Ukraine to learn and adapt their knowledge to be able to prepare for a better invasion of Taiwan, that still sets the invasion of Taiwan years into the future, most likely in 2027 and 2029. So just want to put that out there for folks, just in case you're thinking, oh my god, like they're going to get invaded in a couple of months. Nah, probably not. If they were waiting for this little piece of the puzzle to fall into place, it still would be years away. But nevertheless, a lot of people have had many different opinions on this right now. And Matthew, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so the polls actually pretty evenly split. About 39% said China really can't learn anything from Russia, while 39% said China will gain some knowledge from it, and 17% said it's really a desperate move by China. And really, to be perfectly honest, I think the Chinese could learn something from the war, because of course, they've really not fought a modern war ever, like the current people that are in charge. So for them to see war up close, that is, I guess, real world experience, or at least exposing them to the realities of it. But if anything, that would actually probably scare the hell out of them, for them to actually see what it looks like in real life and see the horrors of it, instead of actually motivating them to feel ready to go invade Taiwan. So whatever the case is, I'm not sure if they can learn very much, because the invasion of Taiwan is going to be a little bit different than the Ukraine war situation. Because, to my understanding, China's going to try to attack Taiwan with airstrikes, a lot of airstrikes, and also with drones as well. They will be doing a ground-style invasion with these barges they're making, but that's going to be a little bit less than the airstrikes. I think the airstrikes are going to be much more heavy than the ground invasion. So they can learn something, but I don't think it's a whole bunch. And also, Russia's basically winging it. They really don't have much of a strategy, and it's basically a meat grinder. So surely China wouldn't want to replicate that, because it's largely been a failure by the Russians, and that's not a winning move. So I would say generally not much to learn. So I'm with the 39% that said that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Chinese would most likely learn something from it, because once again, theory is a lot more different than practice. And I've seen some people, some detractors in the chat, trying to say, well, it wouldn't take that long for them to be able to implement a new doctrine, because they're not creating a brand new one, they're refining an old one. I would actually have to disagree. I would believe that there is a lot to learn, and warfare has completely changed. If you really want to fight it effectively in the 21st century, you pretty much have to change everything to involving drones. So you have to introduce entirely new units. Just once again to remind people, the Ukrainians are the only nation in the world currently that has a specialized drone unit at this point that specializes in drone warfare and nothing else. That is an entirely new unit that has to be implemented into current doctrinal practices in its own way, shape, and form. You literally have to make new doctrine for that unit specifically, and you also have to create a new way to conduct combined arms warfare, considering that drones literally change the aspect of every single part of a war. It changes how the artillery is able to operate, because artillery is able to get a lot more precise artillery spotting directly to their unit. Infantry are able to fight a lot more effectively. They have integrated fire support at this point, well, indirect fire support, almost in the form of mortars, that are able to be carried around with the infantry unit itself. Not only that, they have a much greater level of reconnaissance and a much greater field of range of that reconnaissance than they had in the past before the era of drones. Not only that, drones also change the way that anti-vehicular combat is conducted. Instead of requiring a large amount of expensive ATGMs, a unit can be provided a relatively inexpensive field of self-destructing FPV drones that could be used to conduct precision debilitating attacks against armored vehicles such as main battle tanks and armored personnel carriers, meaning that you largely don't have to rely on anti-tank guided missiles or anti-tank weaponry in the conventional sense anymore. You largely can create a drone unit that specializes in reconnaissance, anti-vehicular warfare, and also other kinds of support as well, such as indirect fire support for infantry units. It's pretty much a jack-of-all-trades sort of a unit, and the doctrine has to be completely changed to largely accommodate that for every single unit on every single level. Not only that, there's a whole bunch of other major changes as well. For example, the way that armored vehicles are used in modern warfare has had to completely change over just the past few years because of the introduction of drones. Not only that, the way that infantry actually fight on the battlefield has also had to completely change as well, as spacing in between troops has become a far more pressing matter than it ever has in any other time in combat, because now with the ability for the operator to actually see the targets they're hitting, they are able to actually, at the very moment of the strike, pick out where the largest cluster of that unit is and drop the bomblet where it'll be able to wound and kill the largest amount of any kind of a fire team or squad. So all of this has to change in the doctrine to make modern warfare produce less casualties and be far more effective in this kind of a warfighting space. And for that reason, I think that the Chinese actually would have a lot to learn from seeing their units actually engage the Ukrainians, which at this point I would say are the most well-versed military or army in the world that conducts drone warfare, and to see how they need to adapt their own doctrine and also implement what the Ukrainians are doing into their own warfighting abilities, so that way they'll be more effective in the field. And that's what I'm thinking at this point. And I would have to say that the Chinese, in my opinion, actually do have a decent amount to learn from this, beyond just sitting back like we do and watching it from afar. Actually having troops in the field learn from these experiences and adapt to it will be able to give a far better and more refined fighting doctrine than any. But nevertheless, I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion. But another thing that's showing that escalations are continuing to ramp up in this region is the fact that for the first time ever, B-1 Lancers have arrived in Japan and are actually being deployed there. This is something that has not happened before, because for the first time, U.S. Air Force B-1B Lancers have been forward deployed to Japan as a part of a bomber task force rotation. Prior to arriving in Japan, these bombers participated in a joint military exercise with South Korea, an event that triggered a sharp response from North Korea, which warned of unspecified retaliation. But surprise, surprise, that retaliation never happened. This deployment is historically significant, as it's the first time in decades that U.S. bombers have been stationed in Japan, not seen since the era of the end of the Vietnam War. The last time that we had bombers inside of Japan, it was actually during the time of Operation Rolling Thunder and Operation Linebacker in the Vietnam War, as a large amount of B-52 Stratofortresses were based out of some of our major air bases inside the Japanese mainland and would take off from these air bases to be able to conduct their bombing operations further south inside of northern Vietnam. U.S. bombers have not been deployed to Japan for over the past 50 years, and the fact that we are moving B-1B Lancers into Japan is once again showing that behind the scenes, tensions are starting to escalate and rise in between the People's Republic of China, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and the United States of America and our Western-led sphere in the area, and it does appear that we are beginning to move larger, heavy-hitting assets into the area to be able to prepare for whatever may be coming, most likely as a necessary precaution. But still, a fairly large and escalatory measure nevertheless, because this time the bombers aren't being brought here for Vietnam, they're being brought here for China and North Korea. But moving on out of this news inside of East Asia and moving even further on and into the Middle East, we have also been able to hear of some pretty interesting developments within this area. I'm not kidding, folks. Today was actually a pretty busy day, and it was a very busy day for it to be our last day on air for quite some time. But we'll get to that here in a second. But moving on from that and into the area of Muscat, or Muscat, as I like to call it, which is the capital of Oman. Oh, man, we were able to hear that the talks are beginning tomorrow, and oh, man, they're not going well. It appears that both sides are beginning to strengthen their negotiating positions as the next round of U.S.-Iranian nuclear talks is scheduled tomorrow, amid signs that both sides are hardening their positions. This can make a critical turning point in deciding whether the path forward leads to diplomacy or confrontation. Given the high-stakes nature of these discussions, expect leaks and behind-the-scenes details to emerge, considering that both sides would like their story to be brought out to the press. And of course, global military info is saying, stay alert. Tomorrow may provide key indicators on what's coming next. Unfortunately, we will not be here tomorrow to be able to tell y'all what's coming next, but we will try and keep y'all apprised as best we can, most likely through a community post. Nevertheless, it does appear that the United States of America and Iran are having about as good a luck right now negotiating the nuclear deal as the United States is having on negotiating the end of the war in Ukraine with the Russian Federation, which in short means that we're not having any luck at all. It appears that the Islamic Republic of Iran is adamant that they will be able to retain their ability to enrich and refine uranium materials, or uranium, I guess you could say yellow cake, into weapons-grade materials to be able to use in nuclear weapons well into the future. They also are pretty much making the most insane demands that I've ever seen, that the United States has to completely cave into their demands of letting them back out wild into the global economic sphere. And then and only then, and maybe then, they might stop developing a nuclear weapon, which by then it might actually be too late. It appears that at this point, there's most likely going to be no common ground found in between the United States and Iran, and hostile actions may press forward whether the United States wanted them to or not. We have also heard that while the United States is still kind of on the fence right now about conducting hostile actions against Iran and are trying to use the pen more than the sword, it appears that Benjamin Netanyahu has heard the whispers of the souls of those 2,000-pound bombs that were just delivered the other day and is sensing that it's time to strike, as we have been hearing that apparently Benjamin Netanyahu will be providing a special statement to the State of Israel tomorrow on Saturday, the 19th of April, and the subject is Iran, and it's significant, which is leading us to believe that the Israelis are once again still continuing forward with the concept that the Islamic Republic of Iran is threatening their existence by attempting to create a nuclear weapon. And whether the United States would want them to or not, they are going to be stopping the Iranians from creating a nuclear weapon one way or the other. And this is going to not be up to negotiation as far as the Israelis are concerned. We also have been able to see that at the exact same time, U.S. support has continued to the State of Israel, and we've seen that the United States has been providing a large amount of guided and unguided munitions for the Israelis to use into the foreseeable future for the Israeli Air Force. And a lot of people are wondering, what will this special address from Benjamin Netanyahu to the Israeli people be tomorrow? What will the contents of that address be? And a lot of people are saying that the Israelis are going to announce military action on the Iranians, or largely their intent to conduct those actions. Others are saying that the Israelis will depart from the U.S. advice, and that's going to be the statement tomorrow. Others are saying that's probably not going to be anything big. It's probably just going to be some, yapping talk. That's pretty common in this kind of a sphere, and the diplomacy side of things. And some others are unsure and undecided. But this sure is a very interesting thing, because we've never really seen a moment where the United States and Israel are having to decide their own paths on how to deal with a possible nuclearization or an imminent nuclearization of Iran, which is what we're starting to see both sides are having to consider right now. The United States is trying to go down the diplomatic route, at least for the moment, and the Israelis have decided that they're going to be telling the Iranians not to eat the yellow snow because they're going to be bombing it. Nevertheless, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So 60% of the audience said that Israel will action on Iran, or at least imminent action, while 22% said that Israel will depart from U.S. advice, and 10% said it's probably nothing major. So the only option, which is not listed here on the poll, is maybe there might be an announcement that there's been some tentative deal reached between Iran and Israel. But I would highly doubt that. In fact, that's why I didn't really even put it as an option, because so far Israel said that they're not going to allow Iran to create a nuke, and Iran has said you can F off, basically. That's what the Iranians have said. So I would say that Israel's probably going to announce something aggressing on Iran, would be my guess. But aren't going permit them to actually start a war tomorrow because we won't be here to cover it. So that's safe at least. But seriously speaking, I would say that Israel might be announcing a departure from U.S. advice on this issue, or at least issuing a warning to the public, letting everybody know that they're not going to be bullied around or told that they can't address the Iranian issue while they're in this moment where they haven't developed a nuke just yet. So I would be generally with the 22%. Now, for Israel to declare war or to say something like they're going to take military action, that would be a little bit foolish. And also, that's really not the Israeli way. They usually don't announce stuff before they do it. They usually just pull it off, and that's the end of it. So I would really doubt that. So I'm actually with the 21%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, first off, we have the return of RoboMatt tonight, which has made a long time disappearance, but is reemerging again tonight. I don't know why. Did
you hear anything?
Dude, I heard a lot of it, but at the same time, you sounded like R2-D2 for like a couple of words at a time. But we got the general gist. We got the general gist. I don't know what's causing that, though, because it appears that internet reception isn't perfect on my end tonight. I don't know if it's a Discord thing. Let me check. It doesn't really appear to be a Discord thing per se, so it might be a you thing or it might be a me thing. But luckily, we won't really have to figure this out too much because we'll be taking a little bit of a break from the streaming for a couple of days here, literally starting tomorrow. So hopefully, we won't have to figure that out too much. But if y'all haven't heard it before, folks, you're hearing it tonight. It's the return of RoboMatt, which we all missed dearly. But another thing that I do have to say really quickly, speaking on this poll, is that I do believe that the statement tomorrow will most likely be the Israelis departing from the United States. I do not believe that the Israelis are ready yet, even by their own military planning standards, to conduct a preemptive attack against the Islamic Republic of Iran. So I'm doubting that they would conduct one. And also, the Israelis don't like to broadcast that sort of stuff in advance. When the Israelis bomb the Iranians, you find that out when the bombs are exploding in Iran. Unlike the Iranians, who will sit there for an entire week and hype it up like it's an upcoming MMA match, and they're Dana White, and they'll be out there like, oh, they're going to get their asses beat. Like, they'll do that for a week, but the Israelis do not do that in return. They just bomb them. So I have a feeling that that's most likely going to be what's happening tomorrow, is that there's going to be an announcement that Israel has to prioritize its own safety over diplomatic relations, and that's most likely going to be the statement that they're making to the Israeli public tomorrow. That's at least what I would believe, because I would find it pretty tough to think that Netanyahu would already be telegraphing the fact that the Israelis may be striking them in the middle of the day tomorrow. So with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. And in the meantime, down near the area of western Yemen, we were able to see something very interesting today happen to a French destroyer, the Aquitaine. This is the French Navy's Aquitaine class frigate engaging a Houthi drone in the distance. And this drone actually got so close it could be engaged by the ship's main gun, which main guns on modern destroyers largely double as a flak cannon for the large part. That's why I was engaging the drone like this, because that's just how it works. Believe me, folks, it's a really in-depth explanation as to how all that evolved, but that's how it works. But nevertheless, we could see them engaging that Houthi drone and taking it down, and take a gander at this. And there was the impact. They took out the drone right there. And the drone is down.
Wow.
We now
Sounds like the French guys were panicking a little bit. Sounds like they were pretty frantic about that.
Dude, it got close. It was like 2 miles away. Like, I don't know how, honestly, it got that close. Usually, the U.S. Navy engages them when they're dozens of miles away still. But we'll throw, like, a $3 million missile at, like, a $10,000 drone to do that. But the French had that thing right up on them. I mean, it was literally less than 2 miles away, most likely. So they were probably crapping themselves when they were shooting that thing down, because that was getting a little too close for comfort. But we can also see the hit through the gun targeting camera right here as well, from the fire control center on board this destroyer. And that was a dead-on impact right there.
It's kind of interesting they chose to release this footage and actually show how close it got. I wonder why they chose to do that.
I wonder why. But still, it was a really cool clip. Let's watch it again, because you could see a bit of the I don't know what you would want to call it, not really the cheesecloth, I forgot what it's called, the wadding the wadding that was inside one of the shells. It actually flew out of the barrel and then flew past the bridge, and it looked like it's just a piece of debris, but it's actually a piece of wadding from one of the cartridges. But check it out. Right there it is. That's the wadding right there from one of the cartridges.
Oh, look at that. Some wadding. That's very nice. Expensive.
Yeah, pretty neat. But it was a pretty cool clip all around. Very dramatic, actually. The French honestly have a thing for dramatic displays. I'm not gonna lie, they really made this feel like it was a movie scene. To be entirely honest, Matthew, like the whole thing felt like a well-produced movie. But nevertheless, the French did come under attack from the Houthis today. So if some people were wondering, hey, why are the Houthis just picking on America? No, they're actually picking on everyone, including the French. Ah, the French. They've always been known for their excellence. There is a French destroyer inspired by that same French excellence, and it is the Aquitaine. But nevertheless, it is time for us to move on out of the Middle East. But before we move on from the Middle East, we did get to hear that there was new footage showing a Houthi attack against a French destroyer today, an Aquitaine-class destroyer in the Red Sea. And a lot of people are wondering, will the U.S. ramp up attacks on the behalf of Français? And some people are saying that yes, they will. Others are saying, no, this is a pretty common occurrence as I choke on my spit. Some others are saying, some strong words only, and others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
About 59% said yes, this will spark escalation, while 23% said no, this is a common occurrence, and 13% said some strong words only. And really on those, I really doubt it's going to spark anything new. The United States is basically in an all-out war with the Houthis without essentially declaring war with Houthis. So it's pretty much at its maximum phase right now. Now, the only thing that could be done to escalate it is a ground invasion of Yemen could be started, but there's been no sign of that. And also it appears the U.S. government is committed to airstriking only and not starting a ground invasion of Yemen to go take the Houthis out. So that's pretty much the only other thing that could happen. And there's been no statements suggesting that that's coming in any way whatsoever. So I think the French are going to call this one and chalk it up to just pretty much a lucky shot, and they got it and they took it down. That was the end of it. So, Enforcer, what say you?
Really quickly, I'm going to do something. Oh, hang on. All right, hopefully that fixes it because you were going Robomat all over the place again right there. I don't know what's going on with that. Because
That's weird.
Yeah, the quality's been fine up until the last day we're going to be on air for a while, and now it's starting to get a little patchy, a little bit blotchy here and there. But beyond that, I do believe that this is just going to be a one-and-done incident. The French, they got fired on, they fired back, they shot down the drone. They're probably going to chalk it up to nothing and just move on. So I don't think this is going to lead to some sort of a major escalation where, it's like the French go down to Yemen and they're, pulling a Napoleon on them. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. So hopefully we'll see that we were correct and the French will just move on their way. I also don't think that the U.S. are going to bomb the Houthis any extra on France's behalf just for the larger foreign policy reasons that exist right now in between the United States and Europe. So I would doubt that a little bit. But nevertheless, moving on out of the Middle East, it is time for us to move on up into Ukraine, or Ukraine. We have a lot of news to cover inside of Ukraine, a lot of Frontline news as a matter of fact, and also some Moscow news, because there's been some interesting things going on in the capital of the Russian Federation, also known as Moscow. But before we move on into that, I do have to say that tonight is an interesting night. I don't know if we're getting like a sign-off from the folks, or if it was just a big news night and everyone was coming in for that reason. Because we have had a peak viewership of 10,000 people here tonight at the peak, and over the course of the stream, 40,000 people have watched in our first hour alone. And I'm going to say, before we get into this whole Ukraine war segment, a huge thanks to all of y'all so far for watching. Another thing that I have to throw in for all of y'all is that we greatly appreciate y'all watching this stream. But sadly, we are not going to be running any more streams for now. It's not going to be permanent. We're not going away forever. This isn't the I Quit YouTube video. This is more so the fact that we are going to be going on a little adventure here over the next few days. And I'll pull up the April 2025 calendar so that way we can explain this in the best possible terms. So, this is the calendar for April of 2025. Today is the 18th of April, our time. So this is the April 18th stream that y'all are watching here on air right now. Tomorrow, on the 19th of April, we are not going to be running a stream. I'm sure that many of y'all know our old saying that hell or high water, 6 days a week, every single day, we will be running shows. But recently, we've had to throw a couple of wrenches into that, and primarily that's because we are having to figure out where the third headquarters of the LSA will be. Currently, right now, we're in the second headquarters of the LSA, and it sounds really neat, and it sounds really, high-end, but the reality is that the Enforcer HQ is our house. It's wherever we're living. living. So what we're saying in very political terms is that we're having to find a new place to live. And we have to find this place before October, because October is the decision moment. We have to have a third HQ by October. So for this reason, we're going to be not running streams from the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd during this upcoming 4-day period. From the 19th to the 22nd, there will be no Enforcer streams, and there most likely will be no Enforcer short war videos during that time as well. The channel will pretty much be going completely dark over those 4 days. We will be traveling the entirety of the United States over 4 days, which is, it sounds unrealistic, but it actually is true, and we'll tell you all the exact details once we return. But we are going to be going in one way or another, coast to coast, trying to find a new Enforcer HQ. It's going to be a bit of an adventure. We're going to have a lot to do. We're going to be incredibly busy, but hopefully you'll be helping us to iron out exactly where the new Enforcer HQ will be. And there's generally 3 different options, either the Seattle area, Dallas, or the greater Miami metropolitan area, at least for now, that we're trying to consider. So we will most likely be in one of those 3 places at any given moment during those 4 days, trying to figure out where this is going to be. Nevertheless, I do have to say that we thank you all so much for enjoying our stream so far. We absolutely hate to leave y'all, because we know that a lot of y'all look forward to this channel for your nightly news and entertainment for the large part each and every night. And I know that many people are going to be going through what has been called Enforcer withdrawals, which is an incredibly unfortunate thing, and it has been diagnosed by the Secretary of Health as an actual health issue. Get yourself some help. But beyond that, I gotta say, we will be back, though. We will be back to running streams on the 23rd of April, which will be this upcoming Wednesday, and we will be right back to our normal streaming schedule for months on end through the summer from that point on, at least from what we can tell right now, unless there's something unprecedented comes up during that time. Still, I gotta give a huge thanks to all of y'all who put a lot of faith and credit into this channel for being your daily source of entertainment. We pride ourselves on that greatly, and we also pride ourselves on having well-researched news, and we hope we're able to meet that for all of y'all. And I hope that everyone does understand where we're going to be going and what we're going to be doing, and the kind of importance it plays in making sure that we're able to have continuous coverage well on into the years preceding now, or succeeding from this point. So with that, a huge thanks to all of y'all for watching so far. We still have a lot to cover for the rest of this night, but I wanted to make sure to get that out in the middle of the stream while we had the peak viewership, so that way we were able to get this word out to the largest number of people that we possibly can. With that, I hope that addresses that the best we can. And
also, by the way, just to clarify this one more time, because I think Enforcer making it sound like sort of like on the fence if we're leaving or something. Just to emphasize this, it's just a few-day trip just to go check out a couple of places and see where we're going to move to after our lease is up. So we will be back on Wednesday night. So it's only a small little hiatus. Enforcer making it sound dramatic. I see some people are asking, wait a minute, you guys are leaving the streaming? It's like, no. We'll be back on Wednesday night. It's just a little small hiatus to go check some places out. And the only reason the short war videos are not coming out is because I'm going this time as well. So we have nobody remaining to actually make the videos. And we sadly can't make them on the run either because, obviously there's not enough time. So it would be a bit of a doozy to set all that up every single day. So that would pretty much eat up the whole trip. So sadly, no short war videos. But of course, something major is going to happen while we're gone, I'm sure. Israel's going to launch war on somebody, or Russia's going to do something crazy, and we won't be able to cover it, probably. I hope not, because I hope to be here to cover it, but you never know. It seems like stuff goes down when we go on trips, and then we're like, oh, damn, we missed it. We couldn't even cover it. So, yeah, just to clear that up.
Yeah, so I hope that addresses that well. I was trying to make it sound like we weren't going to be gone forever. I guess some people took it that way anyways. Let me make it clear, we are going to be back. It's a short break, a several-day break. We will be back, folks. We're not abandoning y'all. We're not leaving y'all forever. I just wanted to give y'all a nice little sign-off for the couple of days that we will be gone, because for most people, it's absolutely unheard of for us to have really any gaps in our streaming schedule for any long period of time. We're not usually, we are known on YouTube for being pretty much the endless train of a program that it's been. We've pretty much been on every single day, 6 days a week for years now, for 1,150 days, and there's been very few times where that streak has ever been broken. And this is going to be only one of the few times that it happens, but we will be back on Wednesday, and we will be continuing our short war videos then, as well as these live streams. So y'all will only have to wait until next Wednesday for us to return and get right back into the swing of things. So with that, I hope that addresses that the best we can. And with that, it is time for us to move on into a couple of questions as well, because I understand that we've had a pretty decent amount of questions in this last news segment. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our first super chat of the night, this one is going to go to John B. Rample. Also, by the way, can anybody hear me or am I roboing? Is it good?
You're robo-matting, but I don't really think we can do a lot to fix that at this point.
Well, I don't know what's causing that. But anyways, thank you very much, John, for that $40 super chat. John B. Remple put in that 40, and we do appreciate it very much. And thank you very much for helping to keep the channel running and also funding a brand new mic. And not really, it's not a mic problem, it's a connection problem. But John said, I hope you gentlemen have a safe journey.
And I got to thank you so much for the massive support, John B. Rimple. And I got to thank you for wishing us a safe journey. Hopefully we will have a safe one. We didn't really realize this until the last minute because, to be honest with y'all, like, time in Enforcer HQ means nothing. Like, yesterday is today. Yesterday is tomorrow. Tomorrow is today. All that kind of a business. So we really don't have a good grasp on time anymore. And it kind of was a realization just last minute that we're going to be doing this over Easter, and we did not realize that until now. So we were like, oh, well, we're going to be going on Easter. So hopefully we will still be able to get around and take a look at stuff, and it's not going to be all shut down because of Easter, but we'll see on that one. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make this channel possible day in and day out and make this thing a reality. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now, and we wouldn't be able to continue to be here well on into the future. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to none other than Purple Gerbil, who puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Purple Gerbil, for that $25 support. And we appreciate that very much. And then Mr. Gerbil said, all the best on your trip. Stay safe and take a live chat question in LSA forever.
Hey, we are going to be as safe as we can. We hope that we'll be incredibly safe on this trip, and that no aircraft will flip over on the runway, and that there won't be any kind of crazy business happening while we're flying. We hope that it's perfectly safe, and we hope that we'll be right back to our normal show schedule here upcoming on Wednesday, on the 23rd of April. But nevertheless, I do thank you for the support, Purple Gerbil, and being an old guard and a channel legend, and we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And also, I just saw someone ask a question. Actually, I thought they said they were asking if Matthew and me were related. And yes, we are actually brothers. Matthew's the older brother and I'm the younger brother. That's why we sound so identical. And that's why we mesh so well. Because we've had our entire lives to figure out how to create some kind of a chemistry for a show. Because when I was 2 years old, I looked at Matthew and I went, go, go, gaga. And in baby speak, that translates to, we need to be ready to be marketable in 20 years to run a show. So yes, we are actually related. But nevertheless, what do we got for a live chat, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question is going to go to none other than, guess who? Tom Lewis, who said, how many troops are China sending, do you think?
Probably not many. They'll probably send a small expeditionary force of about a brigade. So for a Chinese level, that would be about 3,000 to 5,000 guys. They're fairly comparable to a Army's brigade combat team or a BCT. So about 3,000 to 5,000 guys would be in that brigade, at least what we're expecting right now. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And I thank you so much once again for sponsoring a live chat, Purple Gerbil, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to be on air running the stream right now on our final day for just a short break. It's not our final day for good, folks. We're going to be back on the 23rd of April. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the remainder of the news. And Matthew, I think the reason why I think the reason why the call is really bad quality is because you're incredibly scared of getting on that little plane tomorrow. Like, honestly, I think you are.
Nah, man, I'll tell you, I think they were having some Wi-Fi problems or something. I've noticed my Wi-Fi bars are not as usually are, so I think we're having some connection problems. I know we had a solar storm the other day. That could be what's sort of like running over in today. That could be it as well.
Yeah, I think so. And also, Monster Lab said, no doubt y'all are taking precautions. Yes, like our travel itinerary is not being stated publicly at all. We're not saying like there's a general gist I think some people can get of where we're going to be heading, but we're not going to say exactly where we are, when we are going to be there, or any of that before the fact. Y'all will be finding out exactly where we went and when we were there and what we were doing there once we return on the 23rd of April. So yes, we are taking necessary precautions. And so with that, we are on to this last question of this question segment, and then we're getting right back into the news.
All right, so the last one of the segment goes to Cynthia R, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Cynthia, for that $20 support and also helping to keep the channel running. And it said, LSA.
And LSA, baby! And I gotta thank you for the support. I gotta thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Because it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to have RoboMat. Let's give it up to RoboMat. But nevertheless, thank you so much for the incredible support, Cynthia R, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now at the same time of day, every day, running the stream. And so a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that addressed that incredibly well. The best I can, as a matter of fact. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the remainder of the news that we have tonight. We have a lot of it. I do have to tell you, though, just in advance, also for Matthew, a quick note. There are no company-mandated breaks tonight, Matthew. The labor union has lost, and we have no speech from Zelensky, so we're going to be going straight into the question segment once the news is over. So just had to put that out there. Also, that was a time-cutting thing that I did tonight as well. There wasn't a speech, but luckily we get to cut down the time a little bit so that way we can get to sleep, so that way we can wake up tomorrow and get to work. But anyways, with that, we were able to hear the air defense report, and we were able to hear that from 2000 hours on April 17th to the night of April 18th, Ukraine was attacked by 37 drones, an Iskander-M ballistic missile, and 5 Iskander-K cruise missiles, of which 23 drones and 3 Iskander-K missiles were shot down. 10 UAVs were also suppressed by electronic warfare and did not reach the target. The interception rate was fairly alright, and it's good to see that the Ukrainians were able to intercept most of the incoming air targets. Meanwhile, moving on up into Belgorod, we were able to see the hammers slamming the Russians at Grafovka. And that's the center of Grafovka right there, and here comes the hammers to hit that bridge, and they hammered that bridge. They may not be carpenters, but they sure as hell are hammering, and that ain't no Alabama hammer. That's one of those nice French hammers.
Ah, yes, the French hammers. I see you know your hammers well.
Good one. And you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp screws? How dare you, sir? Get your hands off me. Well, that bridge is gone.
Damn, it's just like that. Just gone.
Just like that. It's that easy, man. It's like an IKEA disassembly. Oh, crazy. Well, that's the end of that clip, but nice to see they were able to knock out the bridge at Grafovka. Meanwhile, a Ukrainian drone also hit some equipment on top of a Russian rooftop. What was that? Oh, it's the devil. All right, getting back to the clip. You see the drone flying over. Here's another clip of it. Oh! Hitting the bread building. That actually literally says bread on the top. Literally, that's just it. It just says chleb, which is Russian for bread. But they hit the bread building, folks, and I think the Ukrainians be getting that bread the way they hit that thing dead on the nail. But moving on from that, and out of that little clip right there in Belgorod, it's time for us to move on into our location unknowns, where we were able to see a picture of a Ukrainian Susanna SPG in service. We were also able to see a couple of other little weapon systems provided to the Ukrainians over the course of the war, including this really nice-looking Heckler and Koch G3.
Very nice. I like that a lot. That's very looking. I like that green.
Very nice. Moving on from that into our next clip, we got to see that the Russians are having such a bad vehicle shortage, they're even trying to hide the destroyed Buhankas from being further destroyed because they literally run out of vehicles that badly. Take a look at this.
Один из наших автомобилей, единственный оставшийся на ходу, легендарный, неубиваемый, вернее, вечно живущий УАЗик. Остался единственный на ходу, и то после атаки вражеского дрона камикадзе. То есть на автомобиле отсутствовал рэп, и он подвергся атаке камикадзе. Я думаю, сейчас.
Well, you see that this Buhanka told the barber a little off the top, and he didn't know the barber was Ukrainian, so they took a lot off the top.
Видна будет его крыша.
I guess you could say they took a lot off the top, but oh, I'm winning with the dad jokes. Call me the father, because I'd be making those dad jokes.
Да. Вот рваные края, крыша разорвана.
That roof looks like it's made out of nothing but like a tin can.
Man, the whole car looks like it's made out of a tin can.
Один боец погиб. Так что...
My left ear loves the sound of those scratches on that metal.
Dude, this guy literally sounds like that worm that was like popular on Instagram for a little while, where he's like, "Show us to me, little creature," you know, like that. Like he sounded like that the whole video. But moving on from that and into the casualty report, Matthew, hold on to your socks because this casualty report is this thing is crazy, honestly. Holy smokes!
Oh my god! Holy moly! 51 Bobcats, man. What the hell happened? They hit the dealership or something? This is crazy. 51. I think that is the highest, isn't it? That's a record. Yeah, Miss Lisa said another record loss over 38 on October the 12th of last year. So damn, that's a record. That's crazy, dude. They were only getting like one or two every other day until today. So that's wild, man. Like, damn.
Dude, the Ukrainians today said, "Let's go gambling." And then they said, "I can't stop winning." Like, the dude's like that meme. They hit the entire dealership. I think they hit the factory. I don't know what resulted in 51 Bobcat skid steers being lost, but it was a significant day. And Miss Disa was able to confirm that that is a record, over 38 on October 12th of 2024. But there also was some other near-record sorts of achievements that we were able to hear of today, as 88 artillery pieces being lost is the 5th highest daily loss of the war. The troop losses are also up today by a considerable margin, and 312 supply trucks being destroyed is a new loss record by a massive margin of nearly 102 additional vehicles destroyed, breaking the prior record of 210 on a single day, which was April 15th of 2025 and March 28th of 2025 as well. The Russians were absolutely getting hammered today. The Russians need to open up a bar called Getting Hammered and Sickled, because they are absolutely getting beat these days. 1,530 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 40 armored personnel carriers, 312 supply trucks and fuel trucks, 8 main battle tanks, 88 artillery pieces, 140 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 Bobcat skid steer, and the 51 special equipment vehicles. The losses were insane in most categories today, and I gotta say, those Russians, they were weeping, and it was really reflecting well on the front lines today that those losses were coming in. We were able to see a Russian assault in the north was apparently going poorly, because according to a Russian military blogger, they said, yes, something bad happened in the LNR today. That's the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, by the way, Matthew. They are already talking about the wounded, or rather, they sent photos. Those were on the ground say it was a mess. They went on a broad front. Now we just have to wait to see for videos from the Ukrainians and see if we draw any conclusions. I like how even the Russian military bloggers won't count on the Russians to know what's going on. They go and look for Ukrainian videos instead to figure out what really happened. But moving on out of that clip, and further on down the line and into the area of the Seberansky forest, we got to see a sunrise in the forest. Looks like a hell. But you know who lives in the hell and are fighting in it? The Colombians. The Colombians are fighting the hell, and they do very well at it. Take a look. We see them coming on in the APC. They're rolling her on in.
Trucking right in.
And now you can hear them yell, "Run, Forrest, run!" And they're getting on out. And they're about to get to work, dagnabbit. And now we're getting out there and they're getting to work, buddy.
Just dropping them off for the daily shift. Just showing up for work.
And that's the end of that clip. But the Colombians are back at work, and much like many people know Colombia for their fine Colombian coffee roasts, we are about to see the Colombians make a roast out of the Russians. They call it a mild one, because of how those Russians toast nicely. But moving on from that, we also get to see the 45th Artillery Brigade hitting some Russians down near the area of Sloviansk. Take a look at this. Oh my goodness, they are hitting that artillery quite horrifically. We can see a couple of Russians running around after the hit. Running around like chickens with their heads cut off.
They're looking a little bit scared. They're looking like they're a little bit worried that it's not going too good for them.
And it just wasn't going well for them. Oh, there goes a Buhanka. Oh, there's a group of Russians. Oh, they're gone. They're gone. That just happened right there. They're gone. They're not going to be around anymore. They've departed. Departed this plane of existence. They've moved on to the next one. What is it, Matthew? Let's see. I forgot what it was. It's something like energy source field thing. You move up to the next like level or whatever. But you have to pay your money for the yacht thing. Like, I forgot what it is, but it's the thing that has to do with science, or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, are you talking about like Scientology and that like junk about moving up to another theta like energy level?
Yeah, that's like exactly it. But you got to pay for another session, which can be like a couple of grand.
Oh yeah,
that.
Oh,
thing.
for only $19.99, you can advance to level 2.
I have to get to level 2. I have to get the levels.
What does it cost to get to Tom Cruise's level?
An A-list celebrity ship. Oh!
Hey, you can't purchase it. You have to just have it.
Man, like, did you know that the whole reason he joined the Church of Scientology because he was like, so basically I can't read. And the first book I was ever able to read came from Scientology because they didn't have words. It was just like a comic book with pictures. And he was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, literally, that's the whole reason he joined. He explained it that way. And I was like, dude, you joined because it was the first book you could read? I was like, that's kind of like a bad reason to join, really. But moving on from that and into Kramatorsk, well, you got to see that unfortunately the Ukrainians are having to urge the public citizenry to not gather in mass gatherings for Easter because they are scared that the Russian Federation is going to conduct acts of terror on Easter, trying to attempt to kill the largest amount of Ukrainian citizens possible. And that's what the post is saying right there. And that's also the additional parts of that post as well. Very unfortunate thing to hear, but it is good to know that the Ukrainian authorities are trying to look out for what's best to take care of the Ukrainian citizenry and make sure they do not become unfortunate victims of Russian acts of terror on Easter Day. Meanwhile, in Bakhmut, we were able to see that the Russians were living a terror of their own as the Ukrainians were continuing to hit them with the FPV drones, which we can see right here.
This is that Russo Riz XL. This is when they really laid the Riz on them.
Bro, call in the Rizzler. We're Ukrainian, guys! Of course we hit the Russians with an FPV! Boom! 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 Hit them with the Riz! Oh! But we can see
yeah, hit him with the chicken bake. Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Man, hit him with that Russo bake.
I would love my content to be based around a grocery store.
We are Costco guys. I'm not a Costco. Well, I wish I was a Costco guy, but I'm not a Costco guy. We don't have a membership.
How do you even like get into that category of content? Like making content for a grocery store? Was their whole like scheme the whole time to like hope that Costco noticed or something and somehow get publicity of it?
Honestly, man, I have no clue. Thank you, my robotic companion, for asking that question. But I have no clue, man. Like, honestly, I don't know why they did that. But like, dude, honestly, man, I'm not gonna lie, dude. That guy's cheeks are like red enough, dude, that he honestly looks like that ventriloquist puppet from like the Twilight Zone that like took over the guy. You know the one I'm talking about, right? That episode.
Yeah. I think the guy looks very intense. He looks like he's very much into Costco, like to a very high degree.
Dude, he goes into Costco and he goes up to the cashier, and the cashier's like, hi, what can I do for you? He's like, where do you have the double chocolate crunch cookie? You know, something like that. It's like scaring the shit out of the people working there. But anyways, moving on from that and down into Toretsk, we did get to see an unfortunate bird's eye view of what remains of the city. Of course, most of it has been destroyed in the ferocious fighting between the Ukrainian and Russians for who will control the city. But it is silver lining of a sort, because areas that are usually heavily destroyed, such as this, is showing that the Ukrainian resistance is strong and that they're continuing to hold the area or attempting to retake it.
Is it better now?
It's a little bit better now. What did you
Good.
do?
I just got closer to the mic.
Well, yeah, I know that. Like, but I was like wondering, like, technically, what did you do to fix it?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, cool. That's neat. Like, honestly, that's a pretty good thing all around, you know. But let's see here. See some people. What do you have here? So now destroy commie block, unfortunately. Crazy enough, that wall is standing over there without any support whatsoever.
That is crazy. You wouldn't see tofu eggs any longer.
Yes, Robomat, I agree. Tofu drag, it just doesn't exist here in Ukraine.
I'm leaving the call. I'll be back.
All right, Matthew is hopefully going to be back, and hopefully the situation will fix itself. I'm doubting it, though, because for some reason tonight, even when I restarted the call, it didn't really fix itself. I think this is more so an internet issue than anything tonight, because we've never had an issue like this before in the many, many months of running the channel with the new computer. Anyways, moving on down towards... Oh.
Application for the co-host spot on the Enforcer channel.
Oh, look, you're back! And the Russians also surrendered down here in Novobabmakivka. Take a look at this. And we see here the Russians giving up to the drone. We can see him putting his hands up.
Why is he coming out like the boogeyman or something?
Bro, he's coming out like he's about to ask where that chicken bake's at.
Listen, we're the Russian guys. Double chocolate chunk cookie is not in our future.
Well, Krasnodar, guys! Of course we conduct a mutiny and attempt to kill our commanders. Like, it's just like... Oh, yeah.
We're the Russian guys. Of course they tried to go into battle without weapons, because that's the Russian way.
Oh, well, Russian guys! Of course we send our disabled into combat with crutches. It's the only way! Yay! Boom! Boom! Hit him with the Riz! Hit him with the Riz! And then Putin does the monkey face thing meme. Let me go pull that up. Like Putin monkey. Let me see. Look, it's the Rizzler. Hit him with the Riz. Hey! He put it in the Rizzler. He hit him with the Riz blade. And I had to pull this up for the context.
Dear.
Man, I tell you what, that really doesn't look like him. A very striking sort of an impression of the Vladimir Putin. But moving on from Monkey Putin, or as they call them, Putin Monkey. Either way, potato, you know. It's time for us to move on to next one, where we were able to see down south of Avdiivka, the Russians, they get slammed. But take a gander. Oh, this is like a cult intro. And they have a whole intro to this thing. And they're now riding on in, fellas. They're riding on in. Passing destroyed main battle tanks. The Russians, they weep. Driving through checkpoints. Looking at the Ukrainian flags up on the rooftops.
You know what they call that checkpoint back there?
What?
Checkpoint Charlie.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, original. I'm really just trying to check my microphone. That's why it was so terrible.
Oh, well, I mean, hey, it sounds like it was kind of fixing itself a little. But wait 3 minutes and then it'll go right back to how it was. That's just how it always works.
Oh, look, they have missiles.
Oh, they do. Oh,
Oh, and they're using them.
clusters.
Oh, wow, that's a scene.
My fellow Americans, my wife is divorcing me. I had to do that one. I couldn't resist. But we can see here, popping nades, setting up ATGMs. These guys are busy out here.
Oh, look at one.
Man, RoboMatt is back in the flesh. Matthew, I'd just give up on fixing that, honestly, tonight. I don't think that's a fixable thing. I think it's an internet thing, honestly. Oh, look, this guy's doing exercises.
That dude's core is ripped.
Whoa, look at that guy's core. I mean, that's a lot like the core. Whoa. I mean, they're at work down here, folks. Oh.
Oh, you heard that?
Oh, I did. I did hear that one.
It won't hear my talking, but it'll hear a sound effect. That's interesting.
It'll hear you go, but it won't hear you give a
I bet
whole
if I
sentence.
did, oh man, I bet that came through.
It actually did modulate on that one. It went, oh man. I was like, wow. 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 Oh, look, a cat. Meanwhile, this guy's fiddling with some textiles. And the rain and the flag. And the flag was still there. Oh, say does. Oh, that's the end of that clip. Very interesting to see. Moving on from that and further on towards Seladove, we got to see this Ural 4320 cooking on the side of the road. Call that thing a roadside barbecue, the way that thing be cooking her up. Moving on from that and on to our next clip, even further on from that and closer to the city of Pokrovsk, we also got to see the Ukrainians hitting a hiding Russian. And we can see the drone coming on in here and getting ready to slam him. And oh, the Russian threw a brick. But sadly, the Russian got bricked instead. Oh. I guess you could say that Russian was bricked up. Holy moly, we got a skull with an aviator cap. And pistons. I don't know what this is anymore. I don't know what that's supposed to represent. But moving on from that. Moving on from that, near to Shevchenko, we also get to see the Russians getting hit by artillery. Oh, a whole column of them just getting slammed by artillery.
That's so stupid to drive into the line like that. That is so dumb. Look, one by one, they're getting picked off just like that.
Yeah, the bear badly.
Man, I'm just gonna play for the rest of the night.
Man, you better pipe it up. I'm just kidding, man. If you want to talk, it's fine. You're understandable. It's just that it is coming through really kind of garbled for a word or two. But it's fine to yap though, man. It's fine. Please feel free to. It is just funny to think about it though and try and imitate it because it does sound funny sometimes. But we unfortunately did get to see that the central hospital in Pokrovsk was hit today by the Russians. When you see the damage right here. Luckily, most of the city has already been evacuated, so I don't believe we actually heard of any casualties, so that was fortunate, but still something to see that the Russians did hit a hospital. Meanwhile, we also got to see in another clip the evacuations of the remaining citizens of Pokrovsk here in this part of the clip. And we can see them moving through and trying to find any civilians that are left. You see them showing the carnage and the debris. It's incredibly unfortunate to think that tens of thousands of people from the city of Pokrovsk are having to pretty much be forcefully removed from their homes, not by the Ukrainians, but largely by the threat of death from the Russians, into other places of Ukraine that are not their home, and they're having to leave every single thing behind. It's an incredibly unfortunate thing, and when you think about it, it really does put it into perspective what the reality of this war is for millions of people, and those millions of people are always Ukrainians and not Russians. Hopefully we'll be able to see that one day this kind of carnage ends, and we'll be able to see the Ukrainians are finally able to return to their homes across the entirety of Ukraine. But of course, for now, this is the unfortunate reality of war, and the Ukrainians have to continue to face this kind of damage so that way they may continue to be a free and independent nation, not subjugated to the Russians and their absolute despotism. We now see the volunteers attempting to shoot down a drone. We can actually see the remnants of a drone right there in the street. We see them continuing to walk around showing the damage. You see them now coming in and trying to evacuate the civilians. We now see them getting the civilians out of their buildings and then relocating them to other cities farther away from Pokrovsk. But nevertheless, that's largely the end of this clip, and great to see the volunteers who are continuing to support and help out the Ukrainians in these times of crisis and helping to evacuate their citizenry into safer places. Moving on from that and out of the Pokrovsk front and further on down the line and into the area of Kherson, we also got to see the Ukrainians hitting and knocking out a Russian drone over the Dnipro River estuary near to the southern end of the mouth of the river. We see the Russian drone all the way down there. It's a Zala, but that Ukrainian drone is closing in fast. And it is a dead-on hit. They took it out, and they're going in for another one now.
Going in for another one.
Hey, welcome back, Enforcer Matt. The bots were getting thick and heavy while you were gone. I was having to go through and bop them myself.
How can that be? But can you hear me loud and clear now?
I can hear you loud and clear now, Matthew. It sounds like the troubles are over. It may have actually been on your end, surprisingly. But moving on from that. On up into Moscow. We also have some interesting developments and news to cover inside of the Российской Federacy and the United States of America. But I have to say that we had some very interesting bots in here while Matthew was gone. To read a couple of them off, Matthew, someone said, "You war mongrels, you started this war," talking to us, like you and me personally went over there and started shooting people. And then another guy said, "Why aren't you on the front line?" And to answer that question, it's because I'm not a Ukrainian. That's largely the reason why. Good on the volunteers, the foreign volunteers who go over there, but I'm not a Ukrainian, and also I'm physically not fit for military service because of my spine. So that would be the answer. Also, why aren't you there right now? But moving on from that and into Moscow, we also got to see that apparently the Russian army may be supplied with food from a seized American-owned company. Russian authorities plan to use the food manufacturer Glav Produkt to supply the army, Reuters reports, citing internal documents. The company was taken from its American owner and handed over to the state. Its products may now be directed to the National Guard and the Ministry of Defense to replace Concord Catering, which was run by Yevgeny Prigozhin, which used to supply the Russian army with food. Glav Product was owned by a U.S.-based firm. Its assets were frozen following a lawsuit from Russia's Prosecutor General's office, which accused the owner of illegally moving money out of the country. He, however, calls it a hostile takeover. The case could now complicate relations between Moscow and Washington. But nevertheless, it appears that the Russians are going to be feeding their guys with American food from an American company. Incredibly sad. Moving on from that, we also get to see that the Russians are saying that the ceasefire is now over. Russia says Putin's order not to hit Ukrainian energy targets has expired, like it ever existed in the first place. They were hitting energy infrastructure the entire time of the ceasefire. Meanwhile, we also get to hear that the Ukrainians hit the headquarters of the 112th Missile Brigade again in Shuya overnight, which we can see right here. And that's the end of the clip right there. But moving on from that and now to Shuya, we have been able to see that inside the United States of America, there's another interesting little development over here. And also, folks, I gotta say that I never really address bots publicly, but this one was an interesting one. I think you'll get a laugh out of it. Someone said, "I'd love to slap the..." They were talking to Enforcer Matt here, folks. "I'd love to slap the shit out of your bitch-made brother. Dude's 22 years old trying to tell us how world affairs work, LOL. He's such a biased little bitch." I would like you to come here and say that to my face, personally. Like, that's actually such an egregious one. Why don't you come down here? I'll actually see you down in downtown Birmingham tomorrow, so that way you can say that to me, because I have never heard someone say something that egregious. I think they're going to get away with it. I gotta say really quickly, folks. I know that folks don't like confrontation, but I don't know why people think they can get away with saying shit like that on the internet, because that would not fly in person. I can promise you that. But moving on from that, anonymous user there who decided that due to their anonymity, they can have a mouth, which would largely be disproven in public. We are now going to be moving on into Washington, D.C., as we were able to hear that apparently the ceasefires are going to be collapsing, much like that guy. But the Secretary of State suggested the U.S. may abandon Ukraine's ceasefire talks, and according to him in a direct quote, which I'm not going to play the audio from this because it might be copyrighted, "If our efforts to end the war in Ukraine fail within the next few days, we will inform the president that negotiations are no longer a viable option. If both sides are serious about peace, we are ready to help. Otherwise, we'll move on." Once again, showing us that the Russian Federation is not being a honest negotiator in these talks and is operating in bad faith. And it appears that the United States is about to just have to realize that, suck it up, and move on, because there's really no way to work with the Russian Federation beyond this point. But moving on from that and out of the United States, that is actually the end of our news summary tonight. And what a hell of a news summary it's been. There was an insane amount of news that we had to cover. And of course, there was a huge amount of viewership as well. We had 10,000 live viewers here tonight and 54,000 people have watched this stream so far. And I gotta say, an absolutely incredible thing. A huge shout out to all of y'all for watching, and we hope that y'all have enjoyed that so far. If y'all have, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, I do have to remind folks that we will not be running streams from the 19th to the 22nd. We will be back on the 23rd, however, and we will be continuing on our normal streaming schedule. But right now, we have to be able to find Enforcer HQ 3.0. Nevertheless, I do thank you all so much once again for watching so far tonight, and we will be addressing all of the super chats and as many live chats as we can, but I do have to say really quickly that our time is limited tonight. For specific reasons, due to the fact that we have to catch a flight tomorrow that's very early in the morning, we will have to be getting off air quite early, so that way we can be able to prepare for that and get on our way. But nevertheless, Matthew, I understand that we have another poll, and what are people saying about that poll, Matthew? What are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this poll right here says U.S. officials are saying that, quote unquote, if efforts to end Ukraine fail in the next few days, the U.S. will just walk away from the talks completely from all sides. And what are your thoughts? 46% said that means ending Ukraine, while 2% said Ukraine support will remain the same, and 19% said that means increasing Ukraine support. And I would say it's going to stay the same. Like when they say they're walking away from the talks, that doesn't mean they're going to stop funding Ukraine. That means they're simply walking away. And it's essentially aimed at Russia because the U.S. is saying they expect to hear back from Russia sometime this week about the talks. And so far, they've heard nothing. So I think it's pretty obvious that Russia's not negotiating in good faith. That's been obvious for months. And the U.S. is acting like this is a brand new thing. So it's going to be remaining the same. I'm with a 22%. But Enforcer, say you.
I would have to say that this means that things are probably going to remain the same. I'd have to go with 22% as well, because it seems to me that there will be no other choice but to continue to support Ukraine, because what else are we supposed to do? But that would be my take on that, so I hope that does address that quite well. And I do understand that we actually have a pretty decent amount of questions to get to before we wrap this thing out for tonight. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
All right, so jumping into our super chats once again, this one is going to go to none other than a Retail Mix USA 2.0. It is 2.0, and thank you very much, Retail Mix, for being a longtime channel legend and putting in that $50 support, and we appreciate that very much. And he said, I live in Rockwell outside of Dallas, and the Pacific Northwest is beautiful, but when the Cascadia megaquake strikes, Seattle had the worst shaking and could feel like a 10.5. And I've heard about that. I'm not sure if it's true or not. There's a lot of fear mongering that goes on with stuff like that. Like also Utah is like on the verge of like having a mega quake too, where it's going to like decimate Salt Lake City. There's something like that going on. They're always claiming it's going to happen, and it never really does. But also, I've been to Rockwell outside of Dallas, by the way. I've actually been through there. It's a pretty nice place. And also, I'm curious to know how you like it out there in that part. Now, I've never really considered moving to that part of Dallas, but it looked pretty nice. But Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you so much for the support. And there is a decent amount of things that are said like that about everywhere. Like there's the Yellowstone super volcano that's supposed to kill everyone up there. And then there's the giant Cascadia earthquake. And then there's the one in Salt Lake City. And then there's the San Andreas fault that's going to split California from the United States and sink it into the sea. There's a lot of stuff like that out there. There's also a lot of stuff like that out here in the East Coast that actually does happen pretty much yearly. Like, for example, the mega hurricane that'll come through and wipe a whole place out. That happens a good bit. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support, and I have heard a lot of great things about Dallas. I've never personally been, but hopefully I'll be there soon to be able to see if that is a good place to be or not. So we will have to see. But nevertheless, I do thank you so much for the support, Retail Mix USA 2.0. And up with this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to see where Enforcer HQ 3.0 is going to end up being. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Howard Mendelson. As people are telling me, I still sound like Robo. Definitely a connection problem, sadly. So thank you very much, Howard, for that $50 support that you just threw in right now. And we do appreciate it very much, Howard. And thank you very much for helping to keep the channel running. He said, Enforcer Matt, please explain to all of us, aspiring channel legends, what a bobcat is, and thanks. And a bobcat, honestly, it's a brand of skid steer loader. I just say bobcat because that's generally what the most popular skid steer is. So I call it a bobcat. And also that's what I've seen the most down here in the South. So I just call it a bobcat. There it is, right there, a skid steer loader. It steers with skid. There is no actual like steering on the thing, no steering column. They simply send more power to one wheel in the back or front to make it turn. and it's a really cool little thing. They're actually very versatile, and I like these. I've driven one in real life, pretty cool. But generally, my obsession with it is it's nonsensical. Honestly, it's an inside channel joke. I don't even know how it came about. It's been so long since I've been doing that. I don't even know why it came about, but for some reason it did, and I've sent so many model bobcats by the viewers. I have a whole cabinet full of model bobcats, diecast ones. So it's just a long running channel joke, and tonight was a big night for bobcats with 51 of those. So I'm gonna say I love to see it. A big going out stream with 51 bobcats. But Enforcer, what say you?
And the reason why it calls them Bobcat skid steers is because the little icon for them is a Bobcat skid steer. That's the reason why. Like that's why he said it back then, and that's why it stuck. And that's why we always use the Kiev Independence.
But why did I make a big deal about it?
I don't know. I forgot why, but you made a huge deal about it.
I can't remember either.
You made a massive deal about it, and then it just stuck for some reason. I don't know why. I forgot. But there is a day where it happened. I just don't know when that was. But beyond that, that's why they're called Bobcat skid steers, just because the little icon they use is the same as a Bobcat skid steer. So that's why he's been calling them that. And that's also the explanation behind it in short term. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so with that, we are now moving on to this one, which goes to Gary Robbins, another channel legend, just like Howard. And Gary puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Gary, for that $50 support and helping us keep on running. And he said, you've been part of my evenings for the last 3 years, 3 whole years. And thank you. And what's next?
I gotta thank Robo Matt for reading that out for us personally. And I gotta say, it just keeps going, man. I think it's the internet, honestly. I don't think there's anything we can do about that. But I do thank you so much for the support, Gary Robbins. And I have to say that it's wonderful to hear that we've been a part of your evenings for the past 3 years. We're always proud to hear that. And we'd love to know that a lot of people continue to enjoy this channel day in and day out as their primary source of news. Nevertheless, what's next? Pretty much the same thing for the next several years. We'll probably be covering world news for as long as we can. We're hoping to build this channel up into a massive news channel as time keeps going by, and year after year we keep getting closer to making that a reality. So hopefully we'll be able to just keep doing this until the end of time for the large part. That's at least what we're hoping for. But I do thank you for the massive support and the kind words, Gary Robbins, because folks like you have made this channel possible, have made it a thing for us to be able to keep running, and have been able to make it to where we can do this as a full-time job and actually cover news as a living. It's thanks to folks like you. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Michelle Esquera, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Michelle, for that support, and we appreciate it very much. And he said, for your trip, we will be waiting for you to come back.
And I thank you so much for the support, and I'm glad to hear that y'all will be waiting for us to come back. I know that y'all always are, and we're always happy to hear that, because one thing that we've always been scared of, to explain really quickly a bit of a company or business fear that we have going on in the background, is that when we leave, YouTube might just, smack us down the algorithm so far, we pretty much end up killing off our channel. But time and time again, it's actually been proven whenever we've been off air for days, sometimes up to a week, and then we finally come back, usually there is a even larger amount of people waiting for us to return than we had when we left, which is actually something that's a huge blessing, because we were always scared that whenever we even take a day off, YouTube might just completely delist us from an algorithm. That's also a reason why we work so hard, is because if we don't work so hard and we take a break, YouTube might just throw us off the platform forever, and make sure that we aren't able to talk, as much as we do to so many people. But I do thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that somewhat well, but it's great to hear that a lot of people will be waiting for us to get back. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to John Brewer, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, John, for that $20 support, and we do appreciate that very much. And John said, is this a mineral deal actually going to happen?
It sounds like it actually will be happening. It appears that some sort of a pre-deal agreement has been signed, but Zelensky's going to sign it over e-sign. He is not going to be coming to Washington to sign it. He's made that very clear. He does not want to be present in the United States to sign this. He's just going to sign it and then leave it at that and move on. So I hope that does address that well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it running. And so huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one actually goes to Gunfox, another channel legend, of course. And thank you very much, Gunfox, for that $20 support. He actually put in 2 of them, and we're going to get the first one first, of course. That makes sense. He said at 5:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, April the 18th, 1906, the coast of Northern California was struck by a major earthquake with an estimated moment magnitude of 7.9 and a maximum Mercalli intensity of XI. Extreme.
And I gotta say, thank you so much for the day in history, Gunfox, and it's great to have you here. It's great to have you here, I tell you. And let me make sure that we can go pull it up specifically. The coast of Northern California, magnitude 7.9. Wasn't that the one that affected San Francisco directly? If I'm remembering correctly, or am I wrong? I think there was a great earthquake in San Francisco during that very specific time, which is very interesting here. I thank you for sharing that. And also, let's see. The cornerstone was laid. I honestly got to say, St. Peter's Basilica was a great use of Rome marble in its construction. Honestly, I got to say, it is an impressive cathedral. It's the largest one in the world, actually. This isn't a good picture of it, but it is the largest one in the world of its type, and it is very impressive. Made entirely out of Roman marble, usually quarried from the old crumbling buildings of the Roman Empire. Very, very cool building. Pretty neat to know that the cornerstone was laid on this day. And also, crazily enough, I actually didn't know about the whole Paul Revere thing and his ride on this very night, because tomorrow is actually going to be the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and Concord tomorrow on that very day, which is a pretty cool thing. So I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that addressed that well, and we will make sure to get that live chat question. So what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
Also, by the way, I think people understood earlier, that bot that jumped in here talking about he was going to slap, or he was telling me to slap the enforcer or something like that. He was actually threatening Andrew, the enforcer, not me. He jumped back in here on a second account. He's actually obsessed. He said he tried to say, I wouldn't say it to his face, I'd love to meet him in person. Probably some little small soy boy bitch. What's his bench? Bro, he's not the one you got to worry about. It's me. Y'all know why you're talking to me like this is like friendly or something like that. Because it's certainly not. You being more me than you would him. So let me ban his second account since he came back in like a nut. But anyways, jumping in.
I'll tell you this though, since this guy is a little bit obsessed. I'll tell you this. Yeah, I promise you don't want to meet me in person. There's going to be no fist fight. I can tell you that. So you might like. Also, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but threatening people over the internet is usually considered a federal felony. So I would not really advise you to do that. If you keep on with this harassment, we might try and look into having the legal authorities look into you for being a lunatic. But anyways. With that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one.
All right, so the next one from Gunfox is another 20, and huge shout to Gunfox for that second $20 donation. He said 1506, the cornerstone of the current St. Peter's Basilica is laid in the Vatican by Pope Julius II. And 1775, Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott ride from Charlestown to Lexington, warning the British. And question from the chat.
And I got to thank you so much for the support once again, Gunfox61. I actually did address that one simultaneously with the first one. But I do thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And we wouldn't be able to hear about the incredible days in history. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we will make sure to get that question from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the question from the chat is going to go to none other than Steve, who said, why doesn't China use drone aircraft carriers? Seems a lot cheaper than their floating bridge, LOL.
And I would have to say, can you reread that one? You went robo-Matt in the middle of that, and I couldn't understand the first part.
Steve said, why doesn't China just use drone aircraft carriers? It seems a lot cheaper than their floating bridge, LOL.
the reason why they don't use the drone aircraft carriers is because the floating bridge is made so that way they can bring ships called roll-on, roll-off carriers up to the side of that floating bridge, so that way they can just roll tanks and APCs on land. Drones only have a limited amount of effectiveness, and you still have to have a decent amount of ground support for your infantry that'll be landing on shore, and for that reason, the floating bridge actually fills a strategically important role for the People's Liberation Army and their plan for an amphibious landing on the island of Taiwan. The drone carriers also are a little bit vulnerable. The only drone carrier we've ever seen in the world is produced by the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it appears to be incredibly limited in its defensive and offensive capabilities, to the point that it's most likely going to be considered a major hindrance or a target and a liability to the Iranian Navy, more so than it would be a benefit. So I think that the Chinese actually have a better grasp of things, at least right now, with the floating bridge concept, more so than any other. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I do thank you so much once again for sponsoring our live chat, Gunfox61, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And also, what is the deal tonight in the chat? Like, why are people deciding to take a go like tonight and stuff like that? There's this other guy in here who's like a Marine Corps veteran, like taking a go at me right now, and then there's that other guy who's threatening to slap the enforcer. There's something in the water tonight or something like that, because I've never seen such vileness in the chat. Like, it's just vile. It's just crazy. I don't even understand it, man. It's like there's a full moon outside or something. I can't see outside when the windows are closed. But what is it? A full moon?
I don't know. We just got feral people in here tonight, and this guy's acting like we got to justify our lives to him, buddy. This isn't a Burger King, and we're not having it your way, buddy. If you don't like the show, you don't like it. Well, I don't have to explain nothing to you. So you can take that attitude and either adjust it or leave. That's really your options at this point. But moving on from that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Leora Abigail, who puts in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, Leora, for that $20 support. And Leora said, for the Enforcers Travel Fund, and I hope the extra cash helps.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support to the travel fund. And it will help greatly, actually. It does help a pretty decent bit. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And hopefully we will be able to have a great little trip here and be able to figure out a little bit more about where the Enforcer HQ 3.0 is going to be. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to General Jaker, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, General Jaker, for that support, that $20 support. He said coffee fund and good luck finding a place.
Hey, thank you so much for the support to the coffee fund. Crazily enough, I was talking about this, speaking about it. I was trying to say both of those words at the same time. I was actually speaking about this last night. I really don't drink a lot of coffee anymore. It's been a couple of weeks since I ever had a lot of coffee. But tonight, considering that me and Matthew have been really busy today trying to get ready for this trip tomorrow, I did have a little smidging of coffee. But honestly, our coffee consumption rate has greatly decreased since I just completely cut out the caffeine consumption for the large part. But I do thank you so much for the support, and hopefully we'll be able to make sure to stretch the coffee over a longer period of time at this point, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this thing possible the entire time up till this point and be able to keep this channel running, so that way we would need coffee at all, whether it's a lot or a little. But I do thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and hopefully we have a very safe and easy trip. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Robert Betancourt, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Robert, for that $10 support. We appreciate it very much. He said, China will go through Kazakhstan to the front with the Silk Road, which has a choke point.
That's an interesting idea. I actually think the Chinese might just shoot directly across the border and say a place like, let's see here, where in the world here's that mainline connection in between China and Russia. They probably shoot right through the border right there and then directly connect into the Trans-Siberian Railway and then make their way straight through Russia, so that way they're not having to get any kind of a third-party intermediary involved like Kazakhstan. But that is an idea. They could possibly do that, but they most likely will want to keep everything internalized between China and Russia directly, considering that they have a direct land border that would make that possible, and railroad transport would be fairly easy to conduct. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. And I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I see Matthew's addresses. I'll have to add in my own 2 cents. Buddy, you're not really worth debating that much for me to take time out of my day to come talk to you, man. Like I don't know who you think you are, but
Do you see that?
Yeah,
did you see him? He's trying to sell me on the idea that we should have the privilege of coming to debate him in person. It's like, bro, I don't even really know who you are. And
Yeah.
so at the same time, I stay extremely busy, and so does Andrew all the damn time. Like, we occasionally have free time. We'll get out and like touch grass for like a brief minute and go somewhere. But other than that, we stay busy all the damn time. Like, it's like this dude apparently thinks it's just like a play thing or something. No, this is a full-on like full-time job.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. And honestly, like, I don't really feel like debating you. I mean, if your ideas were so well fleshed out and so great and genius, how come I've never heard of you before? That's kind of my question. So, with that, I hope that does address that well. Not saying that you can't have a good idea if you've never been heard of before, but you're acting like you're like, I don't know, Charlie Kirk or something like that. I've never heard of you. So, that's my take. I personally wouldn't
understand why he's having a go. I don't understand why he's having a go at us either, because I literally thanked him for his service a moment ago, because apparently he's in the Marine Corps. And, if it came down to a question, like, let's say, I don't know what his job was in the Marine Corps, because obviously it can vary, but let's say he's the atypical Marine Corps soldier. He's like busting the door down or something. I wouldn't pretend like I know how to bust down doors if that was your specialty. I'd be like, okay, we're going to defer to that guy for his knowledge of it. I don't know why he's having a go at us and pretending like we don't know anything. It's like, why do you think we've been doing this for so long? I hold degrees in this topic. So does the enforcer. He holds degrees in it as well. And I don't even understand him. I don't even know why I'm addressing it, to be honest with you. I think, honestly, I'm kind of pissed off about the Discord problem. I'm kind of just like venting right now.
But
I think that's it.
But like, my thing is, it's just like, man, if we didn't know what the hell we were talking about, like, a quarter of our audience wouldn't be veterans. We wouldn't be mentioned in a book by David Petraeus. We wouldn't have other high VIPs that we know of that we can't mention that watch the show and want their identities to remain anonymous. We wouldn't have people like that watching if we didn't know what we were talking about. So, like, I generally have to say, if we didn't know what we were talking about, our audience would reflect that. We have a very wide, varied, and incredibly intelligent audience that listens to the show, which largely disproves the idea that I have to debate you specifically for my rite of passage to know that I know what I'm talking about. So, anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Right. So our next one here goes to Robert. Let's see. I think we already got Robert. So I think I forgot to put a red check mark on it. I was too busy yapping about the other guy. But anyways, thank you very much, Robert, for the support once again. And this one goes to Paul Gill, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Paul, as well, for that support. He said, thanks for bringing the news that nobody else does. And love you guys. And love Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying our coverage. We try and bring as much news as we can and the well-researched news that we can, and I hope that we've been able to meet that criteria tonight, as it's our final night on air before we go on this trip and then come back on the 23rd. So we will be running streams again. I want to make that clear, just in case some people are mishearing that. We are going to be taking a break from streaming, but we will be back on the 23rd. But I do thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't actually be able to have a shot at covering the news. And we wouldn't be able to do this as a full-time job, or we're able to do this practically 70 hours a week each at this point. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So our next one here goes to Tom Xman, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Tom, as well. He said, have a good trip, and take a live chat question.
Hey, and we're going to have a great trip. We're going to have a fun one. And we will be able to tell you all about it once we come back. And so with that, I got to thank you so much once again for support. And we will make sure to get a live chat question as that guy comes back again.
He's back. He's back, man. The slapper is back.
The slapper, like, the slapper has returned. In like, as I said again, come and try, man. Just come and try. You're not the first, you're not going to be the last. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So
actually, we got to get the live chat. Yeah.
Question. Yes, grabbing that live chat question. This one from the live chat is going to go to Rye Guy SR, who says, "How close to World War III are we?"
We're getting there, actually, at this point. I would say that we're not there. We're not really close to being there, but the odds are going up. Back in the day, I used to say that we're incredibly far away from a world war, even with the war in Ukraine going on, and it was like less than a percentage chance that there would be a world war. Nowadays, I would say that chance is getting on up to a 10 to 15% chance. It's getting on up there as far as what's going on in the world and the kind of tensions and escalations that are beginning to happen in Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia, all separate from each other. And it's getting to the point where we could see a major global conflict break out either on all three fronts at once or in a specific front, and then it spreads out into the remaining fronts. So I would say that it's getting on. It's not close to happening. It's still a 10 to 15% chance, more on the lower side, but it's starting to get on up there as time keeps passing by, in my opinion at least. But I do thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next. Also, Ava Blue said, people threaten to unalive me every day. No, I promise you, this is not the first time we've dealt with a lunatic like this. We get plenty of these over email. And usually a lot of people do more research than this guy. They'll have like our home address, and they'll know that we, have like dogs or something like that. They'll know generally like the layout of our house and everything. We've gotten plenty of like very descriptive kind of threats like that before. And at this point, we're like, come on, it's like we get tired of people running their mouths, honestly. It's like, if you're going to threaten like that, we would like to see that one person finally was a nutty enough person to actually come and try and act out on it, because we just get tired of hearing the yapping. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here goes to Howie, who puts in a 10. And huge shout out to Howie for that $10 support, and we appreciate it very much. He said, Happy Easter, Enforcers. A&M. Andrew and Matt. Texas A&M. I just realized those two initials actually was A&M. That's kind of interesting. But he said, good luck on your search. And thank you, Howie, for that good luck on the search. Hopefully we do have good luck on the search. And honestly, when he said Happy Easter, it reminded me once again that I didn't even know that we were actually scheduling our trip over Easter weekend, which is kind of interesting. If I'd have known that, I probably wouldn't have scheduled it over Easter weekend. But we're going anyway. We're committed at this point, so we're going. But thank you very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
We're going anyway. We're going to be heading out. Easter, like I was bringing up to Matthew, I was like, man, if anything was going to happen, it most likely would be during Easter because, it's a religious holiday. Usually that's when extremists like to attack. But we're still going anyways. And I have a feeling that the chances of an attack like that would still be low because I don't think one's happened like that over the past several years. But I do thank you for the support, and I thank you for wishing us well on this journey. Hopefully we'll be doing quite well. And also, thank you for knowing our names, because no one ever really calls me, like, not even friends call me Andrew anymore. Everyone calls me the Enforcer. So I've just gotten used to being called that pretty much everywhere. But it's crazy to know that you actually are one of the people that knows that my name is Andrew, because it's not even really stated on this channel much either. But still, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Jason Curling, who puts a 5. And thank you very much, Jason, for that support. And he said, good luck finding that Enforcer studio.
Hey, and hopefully we'll have some good luck. We still have a lot of good places picked out, and we're trying to figure out exactly where it will be. And I have a feeling it's going to end up in a really nice space, a really nice spot. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Matthew, now everyone who's getting in fights with us is getting confused. The one guy who wants to debate us is thinking that we're saying that he threatened us, which isn't the case. And then the slapper guy is probably thinking that we want to debate him while he's trying to beat us up. So I guess it's getting confusing for all of them. But what a crazy way to round out our last stream for a couple of days here is having a whole bunch of people either trying to act like that we are worthy of being challenged on a debate or acting like they're going to come and beat one of us up. What a weird way to end the stream.
Also, I realized he's not wanting to debate geopolitics. He's wanting to debate like domestic politics. Look,
we don't even do that.
We don't even do that, not on the stream nor in real life either. I don't debate politics anymore. I used to do that years ago, but I don't do it anymore. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. This guy sounds like he's all hyped up. It's Friday night. I just remember that as well. And
Friday nights
are good for. That's Saturday nights are good for fighting. I think. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm not sounding stupid with that. But no, Friday nights are for drinking. So I wonder if our friend here has gotten into that good like fighting Friday night spirit or not.
I don't know. It's a really interesting night though. I haven't seen anything like it. But dude, like, here's the thing, man. We don't talk about domestic politics. I'm going to make this very clear. I don't talk about domestic politics to anyone anywhere. If I do, consider yourself blessed, because there's probably only like 3 people I talk to that about. I keep my opinions very near and dear to my heart. Because I don't really get into that whole political thing. I don't really drink the Kool-Aid. People who love to debate politics have drank the Kool-Aid, so they're either like an extreme Republican or a Democrat. And I personally don't like to get into conversations with those folks because because they don't have any kind of ideas that are grounded in reality. They're more so party slogans and party rhetoric, and I generally tend to avoid those kinds of things. That's why we don't do that here on the show. That's why we talk about foreign policy and foreign affairs on the show only, and we generally have a really solid and pretty much unmoving groundwork on what's in America's interest and what isn't. So if a president does something that's within that framework, we say it's good. If they don't, we say it's bad. It was fair like that against Biden and the current president, so that is what it is. I'm not really open to debating that, though. I've quite truly seen and heard arguments from people on every side of the aisle. I have friends that are both Republicans and Democrats, some of them mildly, some of them extreme on both ends. I listen to all of them, and personally, I just don't really see the point in really getting into any kind of those ideologies, either lightly or heavily, because I see so many contradictions on both sides. It just doesn't really make any sense. So I'm not really open to debating that for that reason, or even conversating about it, because your opinion's your opinion and your vote's your vote. You think what you want, you vote how you want, and that's just largely how I look at it. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and it is time for us to move on to the next one, a legend, Jeffrey Southers. So what do we got, Matthew?
This one does go to Jeffrey Southers, who put in that $50 donation. And huge shout out to Jeffrey, who is a channel legend. And we do appreciate that very much, Jeffrey, for that $50 support. He said, hope you guys have a happy holiday and enjoy your trip house searching.
Hey, and we will enjoy our trip house searching. We are going to, it's kind of house searching, kind of not. We don't really know what it'll end up being. But because of my raucously loud voice, we always have to get a house. Because an apartment will not do. The noise will go through the floors and the walls, and we'll have noise complaints. So we will have to find a house. But I do thank you for the support and giving us the best wishes on this upcoming trip for house hunting. I was about to say house hunting trip, and then I read the super chat, and it got me tripped up a little bit because it was like trip house searching. But beyond that, I do thank you so much once again, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. We wouldn't have been able to make it possible, and we wouldn't be able to go on this trip right now to be able to try and find Enforcer HQ 3.0, which is really the only time that Matthew and me have collectively taken a trip together on our own ever running this channel. And crazily enough, it's not really a vacation. It's more so still work related and making sure that we have a place to move our operations into once our lease is over in October. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to none other than CW, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, CW, for that support. They said snacks for the trip and good luck.
Hey, and thank you for the support for the snacks on the trip. I'm personally thinking, as far as a snack, honestly, I could go for some wings. I've wanted wings for a couple of weeks at this point. I keep on hinting to Matthew, I'm like, hey, why don't we get some wings, man? And he's like, no, I don't want wings. So we keep eating everything but wings. But maybe we'll have wings on this trip. Some real nice, spicy wings. But nevertheless, I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Master HWC, who puts in the 5. And thank you very much, Master HWC, for that support. They said the French destroyer was the main news today in the UK.
And that's interesting to hear, because Matthew was actually debating with me whether we should make that the main title for the news tonight, and I went, I think the Chinese stuff and the mutiny is bigger, and it turns out that apparently it was, because we got a huge amount of viewership tonight on those two main stories. But yeah, that attack on the French destroyer was wild. It actually was movie worthy, because whenever an attack on a U.S. destroyer happens, we detect it hundreds of miles out. Usually that drone is about 100 miles away when it's actually destroyed, and so it's a beyond the horizon engagement. So there's not really a lot of high action or drama there or adrenaline going on even by the crew, because it's 100 miles away and they hit it with an SM-3 and it's over. But with the French, though, that thing got close. I mean, it was literally so close, you could see a little bit of the fuselage hitting the water. It was that close once it got shot down. That was actually movie scene worthy right there with how that looked. But I do thank you so much once again for that support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't have been able to keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Howie yet again, who puts in a 10, I believe that's Switzerland money, isn't it? Swiss franc, I think?
Swiss francs,
is that
yes.
correct?
Yes.
Swiss francs, 10 of them. Thank you very much, Howie, for that support. He said, a friend of the channel, Tennessee Tuxedo, has a question. Do you think tariffs will be levied again on me and my fellow penguins down here on Herd Island, and will it cause our extinction?
I don't know if they will be. It sounds like all of those tariffs were paused, and they explained that was apparently some kind of a loophole that they were trying to ensure. But like my thing is like that island didn't even have port infrastructure, so it was pretty hard to use it as a loophole because there's no way for it even to be a third party intermediary without a significant amount of financial investment, which no one really wanted to do. But beyond that, I don't think tariffs are going to be levied against Herd Island again. I just think that the whole tariff campaign against Mexico, Canada, Europe, and most of our allies has pretty much ended, and we're now singularly focusing on the Chinese, which honestly, the original tariff regimen, I wasn't a fan of at all, implementing tariffs on everyone in the world at the same time, but targeting the Chinese specifically, it's getting extreme, but honestly, I can't really be against it because the Chinese are an enemy of the United States. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Duncan VR, who puts in a $12 donation, and thank you very much, Duncan, for that $12 support, and we appreciate it very much. And Duncan has the animal noises. I haven't done these in a minute. So he says, "Ba moo, ba moo." The new tariff on all hot dogs. Oh man, I need a trip to DC. Oh man, I need a new chair. Oh man, oh my, the French, all the French. Ba ba woof quack. Good luck finding a new house.
Aw, man, I gotta thank you for the support, Duncan VR, and telling us to go get a new chair and a trip to DC. Aw, man, I hope that when I get that chair and a trip to DC, that guy doesn't come and try and slap me. He's not gonna punch me, he's just going to slap me, like a little frilly little slap. Aw, man, maybe he'll take me for a romp in the woods afterwards. Aw, man.
Aw, man. There's no woods even really near DC. Aw, man.
Not really. It's a giant suburb hell. Aw, honestly, it is, man. Oh my god, dude, it goes on forever. It ends all the way out here. Wait, where is that?
Aw, man. Maybe Hot Dog Man can get a premier spot on the Housewives of the Potomac.
Aw, man, that's all he's got going left for him is to become a housewife out here in the Potomac. Aw, oh my god. This didn't look like what I was expecting. Aw, man. Maybe he can go up to, let's see, Harper's Ferry and live in a museum. Aw, man. You can go and
Hey, I saw the rabbit hole down there. Did you see that? There was literally
Where?
a place called the Rabbit Hole. Zoom back in. Zoom in. Some more. There it is right there. The Rabbit Hole. It's a restaurant.
Where? Oh, look.
Over there on the right. Yeah,
dude, we
right
gotta
there.
go here. We gotta go here, man. And the food looks good.
Oh, wow. That food does look. I don't even know what that is, but it looks tasty.
This is in, folks. The food is good. The food is good. And look at that. They got railroad memorabilia. Dude, this is a perfect place. Oh, look. They got some guns. Dude, this is a legitimate place right here. I like the look of this one. And the food looks good. Harper's Ferry has a lot of history, by the way, folks, from the Civil War. That's really when it was famous. And it also is serviced by Amtrak as well. And this is their train station and what it looks like around here. And honestly, man, this is the most Wild West looking train station to be in the middle of the East Coast.
Yeah, and you said this was close to DC?
Yeah, this is actually fairly close to DC. It's in, I think it's in West Virginia. Well, yeah, it is in West Virginia, just out here.
Oh. Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty close by. We never got to explore the area like outside of DC, like the actual, like beyond the suburbs. So yeah, I would be curious to see this one day. I'm not sure if it's anywhere like for us to move to actually, like for us to actually like move Enforcer HQ to, but it would be neat to see it.
Man, there's the city of Frederick. Have you ever seen Frederick?
I'm not, but actually that looks pretty good actually.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty neat little place. I don't know anything about Frederick, honestly. I just kind of picked this at random, and it was lucky because it actually does look pretty nice. Dude, honestly, that kind of reminds me of like Eton or Windsor near to the Thames River in Britain. Like it looks a lot like that actually.
Yeah, I think that's why I liked it. I was like, it has that look to it. Honestly, this town center is nice, but you know, this is deceiving about some towns. Like the town center will be really nice in one little square area, and then the rest of it kind of looks crappy. So I don't know if it's like that here. Wait, what did I see a motorsports place?
Oh, look at that. Actually, it does look pretty nice, actually.
It doesn't look bad. Oh, let's see. What's that motorsports place? Something JT Motorsports on the right. Do you see that?
JT Motorsports and what do they have here? Oh, they got a lot of motorcycles.
Whoa. This is one of the biggest motorcycle places I think I've seen. Let's see here.
Suzuki.
All right, man, it's just a Suzuki Gixxer. That's all.
Bro, it looks
but
good,
let's
though.
see. Yeah, sorry, I don't like those that much, to be honest with you. Dang, they got a little bit of everything here. They've got a lot of different stuff. This place is nice. Like, I like that.
Man, I got to tell you, I'm liking this one. But man, they got an architectural museum. What for? Oh, dude, it's like 18th century. Like, dude, this is cool. Really neat. I like that. They got the reenactors. Neat. I hate that I can't be with mine tomorrow because we're going to be on a plane tomorrow. I wanted to do that. But what is up here? The Rose Hill Manor Parks and Museum. Honestly, man, this place seems to have a good bit going on, actually, to be like a smaller town. And they even have a coal mine, I think. Dude, no
That's
way.
the same company that we have here in Birmingham, that the way.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. I can't believe that they own mines up there. But that place doesn't look that bad. How about Brunswick?
Check out Bethesda real quick after you get done with Brunswick. Like, real quick, let's do a quick look at Bethesda. I see people talking. It's nice. Where's Bethesda, by the way? Oh, it's down there outside of D.C., like literally in the perimeter. It's a suburb.
But oh yeah, right out here. Let's see. This is near the National Cathedral, isn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's further north. It's further north of it. So yeah, it is getting a little close. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Wow.
They got those cherry blossom trees out here. That's pretty neat.
Wow! Look at that! Wow! Wow! Look at that! You know, let's drop down on a street view on this. This is actually something that should be seriously considered. So let's take a look at the houses here. Oh yeah, this is actually pretty nice. This is pretty nice. Let's go check out the downtown. Let's check out the downtown area here. Is it nice or is it not? Oh, wow. Wow, this is actually pretty nice.
Yeah, this isn't bad, honestly. Like, you know, this would be a great, well, yeah, this might be a great place to be for maybe other reasons, but, you know, it could be good, like a short commute to the office.
So that way when the CIA tells us to wiretap Watergate, like we could be right there. You know, you never know. You never know. You know, there's folks, there's scalpers and recruiters out there, you know, they're not looking for us, but they're looking for somebody. Like it's so you know.
No,
you never know.
they won't look for us. Like that Semper Fi guy said. Yeah, y'all know nothing. You're right. We know nothing.
Yeah, we know nothing. It's ludicrous to think. You know, we just have a former director of the CIA who happens to watch our show. But oh well, I guess we don't know a damn thing, right? But anyways.
There's Chevy Chase. Look at that. I've heard of that somewhere. I don't know why I've heard of that. I don't know if it's infamous or famous, but I've heard of it, and it's right there.
What does it look like? What is that?
That there is, I don't know.
Hold up, we gotta figure out what the hell that is. Where is that? It's not that. What the hell is that thing? What the hell is even that? What?
Look like it could be Catholic.
Honestly, it looked to me like it could be something else. And I couldn't tell what it was. What in the hell? It's this thing. It's the Latter-day Saints.
Oh, it's the Mormons.
Church. Yeah, I knew it wasn't a Catholic thing. It looked Mormon. I was about to say, like, I was wanting to say Mormon, but I was honestly in between the Mormons and the Scientologists. But the Scientologists do office buildings. This would be a more Mormon thing. So that's interesting.
That's honestly some very weird architecture on that. That's I don't know if it's unnerving looking or is it unique. I'm not really sure which one it is. It kind of looks a little bit dystopian or something.
I was about to say dystopian. Yeah, it looks dystopian as hell. I don't know if I like this building that much, honestly. This is an interesting one. But yeah, that's interesting. So you can see that from everywhere in Chevy Chase. Very, very interesting kind of a thing. But look, man, there's railroad access.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, look at that. I wonder what kind of trains are serviced here. We can actually tell. Oh, Mark! Mark, that's a pretty cool one, actually.
Oh, hey, Mark.
Hey, what's up, Mark? How you doing? Oh, nothing much, you know. But let's see here. It doesn't appear that Bethesda. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, Bethesda doesn't actually have any rail access. But I mean, that doesn't matter. You know, we have cars.
What about the Potomac over there? The town of Potomac. Real quick, like let's take a look at that. You see Potomac right over there?
Oh, look at that. Man, dare, dude, we've seen millions of these.
Oh, look at that. We see so many of those. It's like a common thing.
Yeah, it's honestly not even shocking to us. We grew up in the country. Honestly, like we got so close to so many of them, you could actually pretty much just reach out and pet them. But honestly, this place. Let's drop down in the middle of Potomac real quick. Take a look. Oh, dude, very, very colonial themed, like in the architectural style.
Oh,
I
look at
like
those
it.
police in the sidecars over there. Do you see that in the turn lane? Look right here.
Oh, bro, that's actually pretty cool.
That is pretty neat. That looks like a, I don't know if that's, that'd be regular police or maybe a detail or something. I can't tell what that is, but it's pretty neat.
Oh, and they're gone.
Oh, they're gone.
Damn it. I was wanting to get closer to them. But this is a very interesting little place. Let's look at the side streets here in Potomac and let's see what they look like. Oh, wow. Wow, this is actually really nice.
Yeah, honestly, this up here would probably be the best place for, if one day we decided to move on from YouTube, which that's not in the cards right now, but one day if we did, this would probably be a great place to find good employment in the field that I'm generally qualified to be in. So that would be pretty neat.
Yeah, we could both find jobs up here, honestly, that might be within our wheelhouse. And also, Matthew, on top of that, there's many other different varieties of job opportunities up here beyond those as well. And also, Matthew, I like how they have another Interstate 495 up here.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I think the only problem with this place is it's as expensive as Seattle or Palm Beach, Florida. I think it's going to be the only problem with it.
Well, you never know. We might have to look into that, but you never know. We could live in Germantown, Matthew. That's filled with Germans. Holy smokes, this is actually way nicer than I thought it would be. Man, very interesting. Let's see.
This is interesting.
It is interesting, yeah. I don't think that's in
Cruise ship?
I don't think that's in Germantown, honestly. I'm doubting that one. I'm doubting that any of these pictures are actually from Germantown now. I don't think any of those were. What does it look like up here? Oh, shoot. This is nice.
Yeah, it's not bad looking, to be honest with you. It looks like a pretty decent area, actually.
Man, crazy. Honestly, it's honestly kind of shocking. I always heard that Washington D.C. was a slum, and we never really got to see any of the
Wow.
any of the place outside of like the federal district. So we never really got to know whether it was or wasn't. And I know there's some pretty rough places up near the National
Yeah.
Cathedral, like we did see those. But it's actually really, really nice in a huge area outside of that.
Yeah, it looks pretty interesting. Like might have to revisit it again, maybe at one point. I don't know if we're going. Well, we won't rule nothing out. I mean, if we go to a couple of places that we're looking at currently, we're like, not too wild about any of them. The price is too high, but I think the price might be high here too. Like the cost of living might be through the roof. There's a lot of people want to move to Washington D.C. It's like moving to Moscow or something.
Man, honestly, a good place that we could look at that's an alternative is the city of Baltimore. We wouldn't have to worry
Yeah.
about the price of rent there. You probably just get shot before you have to pay the rent.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on Baltimore. I don't like it.
Nah, me either. I was kidding about that one. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to X-Ray Phil, who puts in the 10. And thank you very much, X-Ray Phil, for that support. We appreciate that, by the way. I'm not sure if that's your first ever support, but if it is, thank you very much for it. He said, "You guys rock. I've been enjoying your entertaining and objective broadcast for years."
Hey, and thank you so much for the kind words. And thank you so much for enjoying our wonderful broadcasts for so many years. Even through the threats of being slapped so fervently, we keep these things running quite well. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jason Carney, who puts in a 10. And huge shout out to Jason for that $10 support and saying, shout out to Alan the Marmot.
Hey, and a big shout out to Alan the Marmot. I would show him, but we're working on a really strict time schedule tonight, and I'm wanting to make sure that we can achieve it. But nevertheless, I do thank you so much for the incredible support, and a big shout out to Alan. I know that for helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, folks, just to give you an idea, we're going to get a whopping 3.5 to 4 hours of sleep tonight. That's it. That's all. But anyways, we wanted to run the stream tonight. We had to do it. We couldn't go out without running a stream tonight, so we did it. We're sacrificing the sleep for it. But once again, thank you all for being here as well. We do appreciate that. But moving on to our next one. This one goes to Bruce Lee, what's in the 5. And huge shout out to Bruce as well. He said, Iran eating yellow cake? I suppose there's one way to befriend the Pooh Bear. Perhaps they've consulted Chris' mom.
Oh man, perhaps they should consult Chris's mom, perhaps. But honestly, the Iranians like that yellow cake a good bit. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Renaissance Dude, who puts in the 5. And thank you very much, Renaissance Dude, for that support. He said, as a Seattle citizen, it's great to hear you checking out this area. It's pricey in the city, but it is cheaper to the south. Great hiking here and enjoy the visit.
Hey, thank you so much for the support. And I can't confirm nor deny if we're heading to Seattle or not. But I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and we will have to see. We will have to see. But nevertheless, I do thank you once again. Hope the Desert Rest did incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Chef Danny B, who just threw in a $30 support. And thank you very much, Danny, as well, for being here once again tonight and making it to the stream and supporting us yet again. And we do appreciate that. And he said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here. And I just want to say, have safe travels and good luck.
And thank you so much for the support, Danny B. And thank you for being the chef of the LSA. And we are hopefully going to have a very safe trip and some good luck and safety during it as well. And so with that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Asai Sanchez, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Asai, for that support. He said, did you hear about the 4chan moderators and hosts getting doxxed apparently using .gov and .edu registered email addresses via a hack? And what are your thoughts?
Anyone and everyone uses 4chan. It's a interesting place. I personally don't go on there. But it's an interesting place, and I wouldn't doubt that. But beyond that, I don't really know enough about 4chan and the internet culture on 4chan to really make a good comment on that one. But still, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Laser314, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Laser, for that support. He said, minor surgery is successful. I feel so much better. Sharing the joy in LSA.
Hey, and congrats on this surgery. Good thing that you got it. Hope that you are feeling better. And I got to say, thank you so much for support and sharing that with all of us. We're happy to hear that that worked out well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Peter Florence, who put in a 5, along with Plazath, who also put in a 5, and Andrew L., who also put in a 5 also. And big shout out to Peter, Plazath, Andrew, for each saying, have a great trip and happy trails. And we shall. And thank y'all once again for that kind words and support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank all of y'all for the support and the kind words, because each and every single one of y'all is, of course, greatly appreciative of the show, and we are wildly appreciative of having y'all here. And of course, we're going to have safe travels and happy trails. And so a huge thanks to y'all once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, it's actually time for us to move on, I believe, into the next one.
And our next one goes to Leora Abigail, who puts in a 5. And huge shout out to Leora as well for that support. He said, I smell relish. I think the hot dog man's cronies are out there tonight. I think they could be, honestly, because usually when they get too determined and they start making multiple accounts, that is a hallmark of the hot dog man's cronies getting bored and smoking that weed or whatever they like to smoke.
The devil's
lettuce. They're going out crazy. Yeah, the devil's lettuce, the devil's something. But whatever. They're crazy, you know. But and what's to do?
They're crazy. But as we always say, don't threaten us. Come and try it. We want people to feel it's a free country, after all. You can try it. But sometimes you may not be free from the consequences of trying. Nevertheless, I do thank you for the support, and I have a feeling that the hot dog people are running amok. But once again, we don't really bow the knee to that kind of stupidity. We would encourage people to follow through on their stupidity, because through poor actions, one will learn. But nevertheless, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to CIA Accounts Payable Black Ops Accounting, who comes in with a $5 donation. And thank you very much, CIA Accounts Payable Black Ops Accounting, for that support. They said he's not on the payroll yet, so he has zero credibility. LSA, baby.
Hey, LSA, baby! And I gotta thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running tonight, CIA Accounts Payable. We're always happy to have you here. We're always happy to have you here. We love the feds. We love the feds. But nevertheless, thank you once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Clayton Wilkie, who puts in a 5. And huge shout out to Clayton for that support. He said, good day, both enforcers. And could Taiwan put some sort of sea spikes around them beaches to stop those Chinese landing crafts? LSA rules. And Clayton from Australia.
Hey, thank you so much for supporting. Long live the Lee Spring Army. And they could also make a couple of other defensive elements near their beaches, such as special kinds of anti-ship mines and such things like that in the seas surrounding Taiwan. All of that is possible and doable. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Alain DeChain, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Alain, for that support. They said, have a safe trip, fellows. LSA, Slava Ukraine. And the question is, do you think the USA will go through with recognizing Crimea as a part of Russia?
I don't think at this point, considering the negotiations are about to fall apart, that they would. But there is always a slim chance, and I can't ever rule that out these days. But I do thank you for the support, and I thank you for the kind words and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to EEDD, who puts in a 5 and says, LSA, do something in your town to help support Ukraine.
Hey, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we got a 3 from Mr. Mostly Harmless, who says, you address things incredibly well. LSA forever.
Hey, and I thank you for enjoying that. We try to address things the best we can, and I hope I addressed that incredibly well. You see what I did there? I know the jokes. Everyone says I say that a million times, and I know I do. I actually do. But beyond that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Exam, who puts in a 2 and says, care under fire and medevac has drastically changed.
And I thank you for the support, and that is true. They actually say that the era of the golden hour is gone because medical evacuations probably won't be able to be conducted in less than an hour in the modern kind of a war-fighting scenario, which honestly is just back to the way it always has been. But still, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bad POG, who puts in a 2 and says, Putin said the hostages should be thankful to Hamas.
Wait, what?
He said, Putin said hostages should be thankful to Hamas.
Why? I don't get that. But I do thank you for the support.
Thank you for taking us captive, sir.
Thank you for beating us. I don't know what they say. There's no reason for them to be thankful for those people. They're terrorists. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 2. And thank you, Bruce. He said, we're getting fiber. Move here. Hello, Marmot.
Oh, I know that. And thank you for the support. Hey, you're getting fiber. That's great to hear. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Abraham Kearney, who puts in a 2 and says, no matter where you go, there you are.
No matter what, the floor is made of floor. And I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to go where we are. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Adrian Griffin, who puts in a 1. And thank you very much, Adrian, for that $1 support and helping to keep the channel running. And with that, folks, it is now time to move on to our live chat questions proper. And a big shout out to everybody tonight for once again making it a nice big send-off with the stream with our 4-day hiatus coming up. We'll be back once again on Wednesday night for the next stream and also the next short war video as well. But with that, folks, moving into our live chat questions of the night. This one, this Morse code goes to Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, David Millsap, Royal Fluffiness, Arabelle Garbo, Joni Dog, and Norm Pritchett. They said the Morse says, we will see you all next week on Wednesday. Thank you all for watching in LLT LSA and have a fun and productive trip. Thank you.
And that's the sound of money. Y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. We will see you all on Wednesday here in the upcoming days. And we thank you all so much for always being continuous members of the LSA and watching this channel and enjoying it greatly over the past few years. And of course, we'll always be back and we'll always be covering the news every single day that we can. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we actually have one last super chat to cover before we get to our 3 live chats of the night. So what do we got, Matthew?
So our next super chat goes to Bex Chitwood, another channel legend, who puts in a very generous $50 donation. And thank you very much, Bex, for that support. And once again, sending us off with a bang on tonight's stream on Friday. And they said, LSA, and wishing you a safe trip. And you guys called it. There were no successful treaty talks. And here's to the Airport Coffee Fund.
And I got to thank you so much for the massive support, Bex Chidwood. And it actually appears that we ended up being right in the end. The talks just stalled. There's no way to force them. And it appears that the U.S. government is finally figuring that out. But nevertheless, long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you for wishing us a safe trip. Hopefully, we will have a very safe one. And also, thank you for the Airport Coffee Fund, because I have a feeling we're probably going to need it with how early we're getting up in the morning tomorrow. I'll probably have to get back on that coffee grind here really soon. But nevertheless, thank you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also a giant shout out to Ari Sweeney as well, who threw in a 20 Australian, the Kiwi wife and threw in a Shiba Inu, waving around the #1 flag, wearing samurai armor. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much, Ari Sweet, for the
man, I
support.
was trying my damnedest to try to make that sound in the mic because I was yelling over here. Nothing was being picked up. So I'm like, let's try a lower tone, and it came out bad.
Man, honestly, it was hilarious. We could probably have a live replay right here. Wearing samurai armor.
Oh my god, that's so bad.
Oh, dude, that was
dear
perfect. I unmuted the stream right exactly when it got to that. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support, Ari Sweetie, and helping this channel to keep on running. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the third to last question of the night. So what do we got, Matthew?
You know what that sounded like? It sounded like that that late great councilman from Flint, Michigan, or something like that. That would go
Go
and go.
ahead, then.
I'm not gonna stop talking, and if you go low, I'm gonna go lower.
It sounded just like him, honestly. Man, that guy knew how to peak a microphone. I tell you what, he messed audio levels up countrywide with that voice.
Excuse me, I'm talking. Well, go ahead then.
A point of order.
Point of order.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. But anyways, that we got to keep this thing on time. We are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to James White, who says, I saw a headline today that the mineral deal was completed. And have you heard anything about that?
It's not really completed. They're signing a pre-agreement to the deal right now, which is pretty much setting in stone. So technically, yes, but they still haven't signed off on the actual legitimate final agreement at this point. So I hope that does address that well, at least from my understanding of the situation right now. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Elaine Deschain, once again in the live chat this time, who said, how serious are the implications that the USA recognizes Crimea as a part of Russia?
The implications are kind of serious. The thing is, though, is that the Russians already control it. And if the U.S. recognizes it, no one else might recognize it. So then it's just this weird little conundrum. Honestly, I don't really think it would mean much in the long run because that recognition could also just be rescinded in the future as easily as it was put into place. So that would be my take on it. I don't think it would be that serious of an ordeal, and I really don't think that's even seriously being considered right now. I think that was like one of those last-ditch Hail Marys, but going off of what the Secretary of State said today, it sounds as though this deal, the attempted deal, is about to completely fall apart anyways, so they're not even really considering this seriously. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is AF Kaplan, who said, before now, how long has it been since the Chinese military was involved in direct combat with another country?
It's been quite a while, actually. The last time they were directly involved in a ground conflict would have been the Sino-Vietnamese War of 1979 to 1981. I believe those were the years that it occurred. It did start in 1979. That would have been the last time, though, because they've never been involved in a direct ground confrontation since then. So it's honestly been about 50 years since they've actually been involved in an actual physical ground conflict. But they have been involved in limited peacekeeping operations that have been, involved armed confrontation over the past few years, but those have usually actually gone poorly, and the Chinese took significant casualties as a result of those firefights. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And before we go, we have one last super chat, a $5 super chat from Ryan H. And Ryan H said, hello, Enforcers. I hope you'll have a great trip. You get yourself some wings, Enforcer, and LSA. And LSA, Ryan H. And LSA to them wings. We're going to be getting them wings hopefully soon. And I hope that they're a nice, spicy meatball. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to round out tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching and being continuous viewers of this channel for 1,150 days. And for the next 4 days here, we're going to have a brief break, but we will be back on Wednesday of next week to be able to continue our coverage of news of the war from Ukraine and news from around the world for the large part as we continue to see that things are escalating in every single aspect. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Least Spring Army, the Least Spring Army that will never die, and we will see y'all on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time again.
And with that, folks, we will see you on Wednesday night for the stream. And of course, hopefully nothing crazy happens like when in world geopolitical events while we're gone, because we'd like to be able to cover it. But you know how the odds and the chances usually go. Something's going to pop off in the Middle East or something like that, and we'll be on our trip. So we'll have to see about that. Maybe try to address it on a short war video if we have the time. But if not, you will be hearing from us again on Wednesday night, and we'll cover it all then. But with that, thank you all for joining us once again tonight. And once again, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, get some rest, and good night.